The San Jose Barracuda lose a 4-1 decision to the Charlotte Checkers. They also played some other games this week, and we've got some midseason grades. This is Teal Tinted Glasses, and it is starting now. Cuda lose a 4-1 decision to the Charlotte Checkers. They also played some other games this week, and we've got some midseason grades. This is Teal Tinted Glasses, and it is starting now. Hey, if you want to be a part of the show, check us out on the... I don't know where the sound's giving sound. Cuda lose a 4-1 decision to the Charlotte Checkers. They also played some other games this week, and we've got some midseason grades. This is Teal Tinted Glasses, and it is starting now.
I don't know if you can hear Ian right now, but this
hey,
is
if you want to be a part of the show, check us out on the
Tinted
Glasses.
January
Cuda lose a 4-1 decision to the Charlotte Checkers. They also played some other games this week, and we've got some midseason grades. This is Teal Tinted.
AHL.
Sorry,
Get
I don't
ready,
know what
folks.
the hell happened
It's
there.
Teal Tinted Glasses.
All right, I apologize. I don't know what happened there. I must have had a window open that had the YouTube open or something, because I was just getting audio like crazy and it went berserk. I don't know what happened, but you know, whatever. Another show, another disaster, whatever. Anyway, this is Teal Tinted Glasses. You know the drill. I don't know what happened. I wish I knew. Yeah. All right, let's get this going. I am at Ian Blogs Hockey. I am joined today by Mr. Kevin Lacey. I am joined by Sharks Jules, also known as Jules. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I'm still completely confuzzled.
Did we even have an intro? Because after your intro failed, I tried one.
I think, well, the problem is because everything kind of goes through the way that everything goes through. It's like, so if I'm hearing it, then they're hearing it. So I think it was just like over and over and over again. I don't know what happened. I think what happened is I had another YouTube window open somewhere that I didn't close, and it was playing the show. But
I think it was the ghost of Nick Cicek coming back to haunt us. But
Lacey's favorite
darn,
player.
have fun in Abbotsford, buddy.
Lacey's favorite player, Nick Cicek, everyone.
Oh my goodness. All right. I think we're good now though, so you know, whatever. It'll be annoying to edit when we finally do it, but it's fine, whatever. How are you guys doing tonight?
Pretty
Kevin?
pretty COVID-y. But I'm doing okay. We'll see. Folks, I do plan on having a better show than I did the last time I was on this adventure of a Barracuda team. But COVID or not, I'm here. I'm excited. I might be short of breath. You guys know me. I'm never short of breath. But I am excited for our new panelist, Ian.
Yes. Hi, Jules. How you doing?
What's up, guys? For those who don't know me, I'm at Sharks Jules. I'm the newbie to this group. So there's that. I do prospects, Cuda, and complain a lot. So There you go.
I'm glad you said
perfect
that,
for Teal Town USA.
Right. I'm you know what? I'm glad you mentioned complaining though, because I think a lot of people are probably surprised that like we're doing this show, like, and it's going to be like this. The idea behind this is we're going to try and do this on a somewhat regular basis, right? Like ideally bi-weekly, but obviously as schedules permit. I think people are like, well, wait a second, Ian, you were just on Twitter whining about the Barracuda and how this sucks. And it wasn't, I mean, the Barracuda do suck, and we are going to talk about that tonight. But I think what happened was that, you know, on Teal Town, we do a lot of things, right? We try to do a lot of things to try and make people happy. Something that I just discovered that I really don't enjoy doing is gifting games, though, like, and throwing like the stuff on and live tweeting. Like sometimes I just want to watch a hockey game.
Yeah.
Without having to like give it my complete, total, undivided attention. And I think once I stopped doing that, it was fine. Like, yeah, this team is still hard to watch, but so are the Sharks, and I do that just fine.
Can
So
we at least have one good team in San Jose? That's all I ask.
Right,
I just need
and
one of them. These teams to be good.
I feel like that. I wish that was a
I
thing.
should
right?
have done the intro different. I should have said, yes, the San Jose Barracuda are sitting in 30th after a 4-1 loss to Charlotte, but this is still the highest ranking team of the three in the organization. So stick around for Teal Town USA.
Oh no, I didn't realize Wichita was bad too.
Oh, you're kidding.
Wichita's like the worst team in the ECHL.
The ECHL is. I mean, the ECHL. I don't want to make our friends in the ECHL angry, but like, there's enough hockey to watch already. That's what
what's
I
his
think.
face? Mitchell
So
Russell
yeah,
just
so
got
I
sent to
think
Wichita,
like
so
what it really boils down to, right, is like obviously like this is a thing that we do. This is a passion project. I don't know if we've told you this before, but this is a passion project, right? So it's like if we're gonna do it, it's got to be fun. I like doing this. Like I like coming on YouTube and talking to all of you guys and doing that kind of stuff. I love doing that. But like this live tweeting nonsense, like I don't care. I'm not media. I don't want to do this shit. Like I don't.
it is a nightmare. The live tweeting. I've done it for like
it's a lot of
3
work, and I
games
think it's some of the dumbest shit we do, especially because there's so many people that do it now. But I mean, if people want to do it, I'm not like trying to besmirch them. Like if they want to do it, that's great. If they enjoy it, perfect. You do it. But like to me, I'm like, if this isn't fun, I ain't doing it. So hopefully that will explain why it's like, oh, Ian hates the Barracuda. I don't hate the Barracuda. I just hated gifting games, and I was just kind of tired of it. And now that I stopped doing it, I've enjoyed the Barracuda games a lot more, and I'm happy that having someone like Jules come in and join the team has allowed me to be able to have the time to say, hey, let's do this bi-weekly thing because I don't have to do half the After Darks every week. So I think that, I'm hoping that this, like I said, this is going to become a regular event. I'm hoping that everyone enjoys it. If you have any suggestions, comments, maybe I can get a show off the ground without burning the YouTube to the ground just once this year. That'd be probably cool. But other than comments like that, let us know in the bottom what we can do to improve, what you would like to see us do in regards to the Barracuda, and any other prospect stuff you want, let us know. So that is what the mission statement is. I guess let's get into the show. Now, there's a couple of games here. This is funny because, obviously I do want to talk a little bit about the games that we go to, but I was out of town this weekend, so I've watched one game of the 4 we're going to talk about. So I'm heavily relying on my co-hosts here to kind of carry us through.
Cool. I was expecting to talk about 2, but sure, we can talk about 4.
We don't have to like go super in depth, right? Like I just wanted to kind of touch on the Bakersfield games because I thought something that is interesting to me is how Magnus Krona's kind of taken the net.
I was gonna say he's caught a heater. Like even we'll talk about it, but last game when Mackey got pulled, like was it like less than 3 minutes in?
2 minutes
once Krona,
and 15 seconds.
Great. Once Krona came in, it kind of settled the team down. So I don't know. Krona's just kind of taken over, which is shocking because like a month ago I'd probably have gone with Romanov still. Yeah. But he's been banished to the Wichitas.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I look at the Barracuda. The Barracuda are currently 11, 19, and 6, I believe now. They have 28 points. Correct. They are the 10th team in the Pacific Division. They are the 30th place team in the AHL. Obviously, not what we were hoping for coming into the season. I think I didn't come into the season, and I know Kevin's kind of said the same thing. I didn't come into the thinking that the Barracuda were going to be world beaters, but in a division where 7 teams make the playoffs, I don't think playoffs should have been out of the question for this team. Like I think playoffs should have been a reasonable goal that they at this point show no signs that they're going to be able to get into. Like Kevin, what would coming into the season, that's kind of been your thoughts too, no?
I picked them to be 31st out of 32. So...
Okay, so you had them worse than I did.
Well, my thing about the Barracuda going into this season, and this kind of will leak into my final grade that I give the team at the end here, is this team we all knew was going to have a worse roster this year than last season. And last season's team finished 28th. and out of the playoffs. So I just didn't see how it was possible for this team to be able to move up in the standings with a worse roster. And especially when most other teams around the AHL got an influx of young talent. The Barracuda really didn't. They had major holes up front to start the year. And unfortunately now with injuries to both the Sharks and the Barracuda, they still have considerable holes up front. And a game like tonight where they lost 4-1, you see that lack of scoring punch. So they're going to have to rely on the few veterans that they do have, because there's not a whole lot of punch to in this, or pack. But yeah, I did expect there to be better defense than there has been this season, folks. I mean, that was definitely upgraded, but the strategy has continued to just baffle me. I watched Charlotte tonight particularly. Mm-hmm. Think of the number 5 on a dice block. You've got the 2 dots on top, the 2 dots on the bottom, and the 1 right in the middle. And that's how Charlotte plays defense. They've got the 2 guys who are constantly roving the points, the 2 who are back in their own end, and then the center is constantly going back up. You look at the Barracuda strategy with the so-called improved defense group this year. They have 3, if not 4 players chasing at all times, and it leaves 1 skater on the far side. So basically, all of the opposing team needs to do is make a pass across, or if they're in the corner, a pass to the middle, and they've got open players all day and night. And even in the third period tonight, where I did think the team played overall better, there still were plenty of opportunities where Charlotte would get a free pass out to the point or a free pass out to the slot. The insurance goal that made it 3-1 by Wilmer Skog, he was left in front of the net. How do you have 3 skaters chasing the puck and still leave someone in front of the net? Like, bad coverage. So it's a systems thing to me.
Yeah, Jules, what's just some overall thoughts on the Barracuda, and then maybe some thoughts on just the most recent games?
I thought their defensive corp this year was a lot better than it was last year, with guys like Larocque getting healthy. I'm really high on him, and I think he's just had the injury bug. So I think like when we grade Larocque, I'm not going to be super harsh on him because I really like him and I think he can be really good. So I thought overall, like guys like Mukama Doolin, I thought Greer did a really good job kind of helping that prospect side of the defensive core with the Cuda in like his last like 9 months GM or whatever. So I thought the defensive corp this year was going to be a lot better than it has been. It's kind of been a disappointment. Now the offense is just atrocious this year. Yeah. There's like maybe 3 guys that I like in the offense, but like all of their guys kind of either graduated or the Sharks are just so deprived because of all the injuries that they're called up. You have guys like Eklund, who was a big offensive contributor last year, gone. Agazino, Chris Colo. The list goes on and on. Offensively, I was expecting them to be dog shit because I love a guy like Gushin. He can't carry a team. He needs other supporters. Like, he's doing his gosh darn best, but he's just not that guy, and I'm not blaming Gush for that. He's been amazing. So I thought overall they would take a step back. Was I expecting them to make the playoffs? In my dreams, was it reality? Probably not. But I also thought the goaltending was improved this year. I might be higher on the Cuda's goaltending than most people. I will say that. So you probably will not agree with me. I like Krona. So I think the goaltending and the defense was better, but I think the offense, they just can't score because all of their big guns from last year have just graduated. Regarding the game, this is the most self-sabotaging team I've ever seen in my life.
You know what? And that, I think, is the perfect description of the Barracuda. It is like, that is the perfect. I don't think I could have come up with a way to say that better. Because I think if you want to describe the Barracuda in 1 or 2 words, it's exactly that. It's self-sabotaging. I think that, like, for my take on the team overall, and we'll get into the grades at some point here soon. I think the thing with the team is, like, I knew there was going to be hiccups, right? Like you have a guy like Mukmadul, who I've really liked, but he's playing his first year in North America. The goalies are all, other than Makiniemi, are all first-year pros. Makiniemi has had some injury issues that have, kind of really derailed his career somewhat. But at some point, I wonder, like, why see, it's hard, right? Because I know Makiniemi, like, that was the get in the Brent Burns trade. So I can kind of see why they don't want to just completely throw the baby out with the bathwater there. But it kind of bothers me. Like, I think Corona's been fine, but like, if Makiniemi isn't going to be counted on to play games, then why isn't Georgi Romanov with the team? Who I think has been better.
I wondered the same thing, because you guys are right. Magnus Corona, especially like last night with Makiniemi giving up 2 goals on the first 4 shots in the first 2:15, I actually still think that was defensive problems yet again, more than goaltending. But still, Makiniemi's not making those clutch saves that they need to bail the team out from a really bad start. And Corona has come in, been solid enough. I definitely like he has become more composed and more compact. He's not flailing all over the place. I said that the last time when we had Nick on the show. But he has a more calm stance and just a calm demeanor in net than he did. And I think that goes a long way, because Makiniemi right now, no one has any trust in him right now. You can see it on the ice. I assume in the organization, and us as fans have no faith in him right now. And we hope that he can turn this thing around. But you're right, Ian. Like, Romanov is the goalie that we have. Gush isn't the right word, but impressed, yes. We've been impressed more than we thought we would be out of Romanov. His numbers aren't great. None of the goalies' numbers are great. But Romanov has shown at times some flashes of he might at least be a decent AHL goalie, whereas Makiniemi this year, he's not showing that at all. So I do wonder if Makiniemi's time might be running out here in San Jose sooner than later, which then, like you said, he was one of the pieces that the Sharks got for Brent Burns. Ooh, man. If Makiniemi goes for like a 7th, ooh, Mike Grier's going to get some heat.
Yeah, that trade was already not good. I think that's going to be one of
the worst trades that the Sharks have, like, in the history of the franchise. Like, that
I think the Carlson trade might have the upper hand on it, but it'll be one of the worst. But also with goaltending and these young goaltenders, it's kind of just a hit or miss half the time.
Yeah, I mean, these are first-year pros too, right?
And like even with the draft, when like except for like Jesper Wallstedt, like no one really knows how the hell a goalie's gonna go in this league. They can either, a 6th-round pick could end up being like your franchise goal. You just never know with goalies. So like I don't necessarily want them to trade Mackey just yet, because I feel like with goalies, especially them this young, it's kind of a hit or miss. It's like defensemen a little. Like you kind of just have to be patient with them.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be like they're doing great. They're not.
Yeah,
but I don't think goaltending has been the problem necessarily for the Cuda.
No, I think the way I look at goaltending is, and I think I'll retouch on this when we start doing the grades, is that like I feel like if your bitch with the Barracuda is the goaltending, you're not watching the games.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That like, it's the same as the Sharks, right? Like if you're mad at Mackenzie Blackwood or Capo Kakinen this year, like I don't know what to tell you.
I expect Mackenzie Blackwood to make 50 saves every single night and save all the pucks. No. Yeah, that's...
Yeah. Who did we flip Lorentz for? Did he just leave as a free agent?
He was the one to get Duclair, so we gave up a 3rd round and Lawrence for Duke.
I'm fine with that trade. Duclair, I like that trade. I don't mind that. But I mean, Lorentz was never the get in that deal. He was just kind of the guy that had to come to.
Right.
Like
but he was another guy part of the Burnsy trade.
Yes. I just want to say hello to everyone in the chat. I see Chris is in the chat, and he said, "Ain't no party like a Cuda party." He's right. Jesse in the chat saying, missing the playoffs might get McCarthy out of the building at least. Yeah, we'll
please get McCarthy out of the building.
Patrick Tyler saying, "I can't believe I was right in saying the Cuda would be worse before the season." Yeah, man. I
Patrick and me, man.
Patrick and Kevin on an island.
I like Jesse's comment about Krona was rough to start the year, but he's shown extreme visible improvement, which is very encouraging. I completely agree on that, Jesse.
Yeah, no, I agree too. I was trying to save it for the grading portion.
I don't think he's going to be Marc-Andre Fleury, like 1,000 games played or anything like that. Like, there's a goalie where you talk about we don't know what goalies can be sometimes. He was a first overall pick who for years people were like, he's a bust. God, what a terrible pick by the Penguins. Yeah, well, a couple Stanley Cups and 1,000 games played later.
Here's my thing with Marc-Andre Fleury, not to completely derail here, because I think Marc-Andre Fleury is he's a good goalie, right? But I think because of I think at the end of the day, he's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. Right, he's got the wins record and everything else.
Yeah,
but there were seasons I feel like Pittsburgh should have way more Stanley Cups than they have now, and Marc-Andre Fleury's a big reason they don't.
That's fair.
That's valid. Yeah, I was also with Krona. I'm looking at his stats throughout college. He's definitely had those seasons where he's below 800. In college, he was very steady, above 900. So I think with Krona, it's just kind of whatever season it is the Krona we're gonna get.
Yeah.
But that's why I was always buyer beware about Magnus Krona, because he played on some great championship winning teams in Denver where he was not the reason they won the championships. And so that's why I'm he's got a pedigree, but can he show that he can do it on this team where he has to be the guy? So far, none of the goalies have shown they can be the guy. But Krona's been trending upward, and I like where it's heading. And clearly the Sharks still believe in him because he just essentially played all of back-to-back games, which is pretty unheard of in the AHL.
Also, don't forget, I think they traded a 7th-round pick to get him, or maybe another prospect. Yeah. It was something along those lines. So that was back with Doug Wilson, but you never know with the goalies.
So so that's that. Obviously the All-Star game's coming up. I have a question for you guys that are more local, because I haven't really noticed a lot of promotion of the All-Star game in San Jose. Are we worried? Are here a little bit, or
decidedly?
Lacey. Huh?
Decidedly?
Yeah.
All right. Now we're going into Kevin Lacey rant mode for the night. So
sit back,
get the sirens
Buckle
going
up.
And everything like that. Okay. The Barracuda finally had TV coverage for the first time in their team history. I know that that was supposed to happen last season, but with all the sudden back-end changes that the team made, it got scrapped until this year when there was more of an infrastructure in place. And we'll get to that a little bit later on, too.
Okay.
But you get these games on television like the game against, was it Bakersfield?
Wasn't it Ontario?
Ontario, thank you, last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. And you'd think this is following a Sharks game. There are going to be some eyes going, okay, well, hopefully the Barracuda play better than the Sharks did that night. I'm going to stick around, and plus I want to see some of the prospects play. What's the first thing they should go to during their media timeout? Promote the All-Star game. There are still contingents of fans in San Jose, or of people in San Jose, who have no idea that this Barracuda exists, have no idea that there's a new arena here in San Jose. Bring people out. You average 1,100 fans per night, or whatever it is, 1085 or whatever it is. That's less than a third of the building. Granted, I'm not expecting a sellout every night. It's not Charlotte. It's not Utica.
Right.
What? Put it in people's minds. Don't talk about Tigres Del Mar. Don't go promoting other sports during your first media timeout. Promote the All-Star Classic that's coming in 2 weeks. Don't sell it to the season ticket holders. We already have tickets. Right. Sell it to new fans. Get them out to the building and get them exposed to very affordable hockey. And in this particular case, the best hockey we're going to see at TechCU Arena all year. Get people out here. Promote it. Don't bury it in the middle of intermission live, which is what both the Sharks and the Barracuda have done. Especially in that Barracuda game, all those Sharks fans who were interested, they turned that game off after the halfway through the first period when the Barracuda were losing 3-0 or whatever. So you have to take advantage of it. And this team, talking about self-sabotaging, don't self-sabotage getting more fans in the seats, spending more money.
So I was asked this on Twitter yesterday, I think it was, and it's like, do you think? And I can't remember who asked me, so I apologize. I don't want to like open up Twitter and risk blowing up our show again. But so they asked, like, do I think that the AHL regrets putting the All-Star game in San Jose? And I don't. I mean, maybe if it doesn't do well, then maybe they will. But I think it's a small enough building. And it's a new enough build. Like, I don't think people realize how important the Pacific Division is to the AHL, because it's super important that it's successful. So I don't think they hate the idea that they put the game in San Jose. I think it's a nice new building. I mean, I've never been, but everyone tells me it's a nice building, so I will take their word for it. The Pacific Division is very important to the AHL because before the Pacific Division was a thing, all the teams were on the East Coast. So if you're a team on the West Coast and you need to grab a player, they're traveling across 3 time zones and, dealing with jet lag and everything else. Like, the Pacific Division is a huge important thing for the AHL to be a success. And I think so far it has been. But so I don't think they regret it in that sense, but like, we'll see obviously how it's attended and how that goes. And, we'll see what happens. But I still think that it was the right move. Again, you just built a brand new building. It's, you want to promote the Pacific Division. You want to, promote that AHL hockey works out here. Or out there, I guess, cause I'm not there, but, but you know what I mean, right? Like, it's something that I think is very important to the AHL to have this be a success. So hopefully I think it'll do well, because I still think it's an All-Star game. It's going to bring people in from all over the place. Unfortunately the Barracuda are not great. So, Gushkin's going to be the only guy that's going to be there, from the Barracuda. And I think that's unfortunate, but at the same time, this team is terrible. So who else are you going to send there? Especially with the way the Barracuda, especially with the way the Barracuda, like the Sharks have had injury problems this year, right? Most games lost. You don't want to name somebody and then have them get called up either.
That's what I was gonna go with. We were talking before the show. Jules said Mikhail Granlund's gonna be out a little bit. Who do they call up? Probably Daniil Gushchin. Hope he's still around for the AHL All-Star Classic, and then the team has no representative.
Well, they need a center.
But here's the problem. Okay, so I hear your Daniil Gushchin, but with the way the Barracuda have done, or the San Jose Sharks, have done everything in their power to make sure that they can find a reason not to.
Okay, here's the thing, and I saw Lacey point this out on Twitter. Let Daniil Gushchin be a star on a team that's shit. Even though they're shit, let him be a star there. Let's not call him up and have him give press conference like poor Eklund gave the other day.
Here's the problem, right? And here's the problem, because I hear a lot
and
of
I stole
this.
that from Lacey. I'm giving 100 credit
Thank
to
you.
Lacey.
That's
there.
fine.
But you said it better than I would have, but that is the point that I was trying to make.
Here's the thing, right? And we'll get into this, and then we'll get into the grades after this. The one thing that really bugs me about this team, and like people, like the attitude some people have, it's like, oh, you got to let them marinate. You got to do it like Detroit did.
Oh, that.
Well,
yeah.
Detroit's anyway, I have a whole.
You're right. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Now, one, Detroit's AHL teams have generally been really good. They've generally been good. They've had a good mix of veterans. They've had, obviously, Detroit. But those Detroit, it's really easy to leave a guy in the AHL when your top 6 forwards are all future Hall of Famers, and your top pair defensemen are future Hall of Famers. Like, and you're spending, before the salary cap, you're spending more money than teams are allowed to spend today.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to leave guys in the minors. It's easy to let them marinate. But, like, I don't think that applies here because, one, the Barracuda are fucking terrible. The Sharks are terrible. Like, they're both, like, there isn't a better situation.
I'm just scared to call up another 21-year-old right now into the system.
But
like, especially with the Sharks.
But what are you saving them from? If they go up to San Jose, if they go up to the Sharks, like, it's not like, is the Barracuda really that much better of a situation? It's not. They're both equally awful situations. Yeah, there'll be more media because, the 3 media people we have in San Jose actually care about the Sharks. I shouldn't say that. I know they do decent coverage of the Barracuda as well.
Well, let's talk about what Nick said on either the last show or the show before that. He said that Thomas Bordeleau was admitting that up in the NHL, he had no confidence.
Yeah.
And so he got sent back down to the Barracuda and built his game back up to where he could become better prepared for another NHL call-up. Unfortunately, folks, he's injured right now. He's been out the last 7 games. I think he's going to be out at least another week. I don't know what the injury is, but he's going to be out for a bit, it seems like. But that type of a situation versus William Eklund we saw last night after the Sharks game, where he was it looked like Peter DeBoer ran over his dog. I'm bringing that one back. So,
poor Kevin.
William Eklund just looked like the most defeated person on the planet last night, both from a team game and from his own personal game. And he's obviously fighting it right now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying send Eklund back down to the Barracuda. I think that would be the wrong move.
100%.
But I think that you do run the risk, like what Curtis Pachelka wrote in the Mercury News yesterday, where you can bring players up, but if they're not ready here, what's going to make them ready to play NHL games? I mean, I
like, if they want to test out Goosh and give him those games and make the Sharks more entertaining, go for it. That great. But if we're having another deflated prospect like we saw Eklund last night, I'm not gonna go for that because I think Goosh right now has a lot of confidence down in the AHL, and I don't necessarily want that to get demolished in the NHL.
Sure, and I agree.
Especially with how snake bitten the Sharks are right now.
No, I agree. And I agree. So that, and I'm not disagreeing with that. I think Kevin, talking about Thomas Bordeleau, I think raises a really good point. And I think in that situation, I was fine. I didn't think Bordeleau was good. The thing that bothers me about how Gushkin got that one little kick at the can, though, is the hoops the Sharks have jumped through not to bring him up. They go in, they trade for, they sign, who'd they sign? Justin Bailey to a contract, right? Take up a contract slot, bring him up. Then they go and trade for Studnicka. It's the hoops they've jumped through. I'm not saying if you bring Gushkin back up and it doesn't work out and you send him back down, that's fine. At least he got a kick at the can. The part that bothers me about this is that they've gone out of their way not to give him a kick at the can. And that's what bothers me.
They're definitely trying to overripe their prospects because I think they got scared from the last few years when they just kind of throw them to the wolves with no preparation, it felt like, for several years. So, I mean, I'm not saying Goosh isn't going to get a call-up, and I'm not against Goosh getting a call-up. I'm just thinking in the Sharks' mind right now, they're probably a little scared to throw him into the even more wreck of a fire that is the
But if it doesn't work, then send him back down. It's fine. At least he gets a chance, right?
No, I get that. Yeah, that is true, yeah.
Super chat here from Like a Tiger.
Nice.
Yeah, we obviously always appreciate the super chats. They help us keep the lights on, keep us.
Is that $6.90 Australian
dollars?
It
is $6.90 Australian.
Yeah.
He says, hoping Joe Will can hire David Carlisle before the rest of the league hires him. I want an emerging college coaching talent with a championship pedigree. Yeah.
Well, I'm just hoping for a coaching change in general. So.
I don't think coaching change. Here's the thing with the AHL. You generally don't see coaching changes mid-season in the AHL unless it's a guy gets hired to an NHL team, right? Obviously in that situation you're gonna have to scramble, but they generally don't happen mid-season. So everyone's always why is John McGrath? Because it's the middle of the season, and nobody's nobody's jumping to come coach your AHL team mid-season.
Last season, I think there were two. I know for sure the Belleville Senators let go of Troy Mann and hired Dave Bell. And a couple years ago, they lost Toronto. Toronto lost their head coach, but I feel like Toronto's head coach got poached, and then they brought Greg Moore in to replace him. But even then, like, those are the only two that I think happened in the last couple of years, and maybe Neil Graham in Texas. That's about it. So it's not common. You're right. It
generally doesn't happen. And like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not trying to defend John McCarthy here, because I think I was coming into this season with John McCarthy. I was kind of like, well, you know, like, let's see what he learned. Well, the answer to that question is nothing. So now he can go away.
I have a counter question for Like a Tiger. Do you want to go ahead, Jules?
No, go for it.
I have a counter question. Do you think David Carl needs to go to the Barracuda or to the Sharks? Because I know that a lot of people, a lot of teams are very interested in David Carl from my understanding. I haven't looked too far into it, but the Barracuda seemingly need I ranted about a systems change earlier. I think that they could definitely use that. Where do you think Carl should go? Because to me, I know Scott Gordon was not the most beloved head coach for Lehigh Valley before he became Sharks assistant coach. But to me, if you make a coaching change, you send Scott Gordon down to the AHL, and then maybe David Carl gets an assistant job with the Sharks.
But they've already got their guy in waiting in Warsawski.
Yeah, they have their guy waiting.
They do.
Like,
that's
they have. Warsawski better be the next Sharks head coach, and this is derailing a bit. I think with the Cuda, if we're gonna see a coaching change, it's gonna be at the end of the year. And if you don't see a coaching change, well, I'm gonna blow up on this podcast. So, and any coach is better right now than McCarthy, because this team just needs a restructure. Hey. Like, I don't think it's gonna affect their development as prospects, per se. I think it's good to be in a winning environment, but I also don't think Greer's Doug Wilson where he's going to let this one coach sit and rot.
That's the thing, right? I think that's the big question is where is like, because obviously Doug Wilson, you know, but here's the problem that I have, and this is the suspicion. I don't have anything to, like, I don't want to, whatever. My opinion is
you want to try that again?
What my opinion of my concern with the Barracuda is, and I think it's been the same way with when the AHL team was in Worcester, whatever, is that it's always the place where they squeeze the pennies the tightest.
That's valid. Do we know how long McCarthy's contract was?
I don't know.
But
my concern is, like, is if Mike Grier wants to make a move but can't because ownership says no, we're fine with what we have at the AHL. It's just the AHL. It's fine. And we're going to find that out, right? Because I don't know why Roy Sommer had such a long leash with this team, right? Was it because Doug Wilson just thought he was the greatest thing ever? Or is it because ownership said, no, we're not doing that. This is fine because I don't want to spend the money there.
I will be shocked if there isn't a coaching change, just from the quotes that I've heard from Grier. I feel like Greer's, and again, if it's ownership, then it's ownership. Like, we can't do anything about that.
Right.
But I think if it's Grier and Joe Will's hands, I think they know how important it is for these young kids to develop right. And not saying McCarthy's stalling these guys' development, but I think the Cuda just need a change of pace right now. Because next year you're gonna have a guy like Beasted come over. In 2 years you're gonna have Musty and maybe Halsey come over.
Yeah.
And Holtman is going to need some refining, and McCarthy's not that coach to give Holtman that refining.
It's hard because, like, you want to sell. Like, here's the most frustrating thing about the Barracuda. I want to come on here and tell you that the Barracuda matter, that you should be watching the Barracuda, that, you know, that this team is worth your time. And the most frustrating part of the Barracuda, especially with the Sharks being as bad as they are this year, like, borderline historically bad, is that I can't come on here with a straight face and tell you that the Barracuda should matter, that you should invest your extra time to be like, oh, well, you know, the Sharks are bad, but you should watch this other team too. I want so badly to come on here and be like, yeah, you guys got to care about the Barracuda. You should care about the Barracuda because this team is fun. This team is, like, you know, it's a cheaper ticket. It's more fun to watch. This is the future of the team. How do I do that with a straight face? Especially if the organization's not going to pay me to do it.
That's what made it frustrating for me, seeing the lack of off-season attention paid to the Barracuda, and why I said they had major holes in the roster going into training camp. Like, this organization needs a boost somewhere, and the Sharks are clearly not it. The Sharks are going the opposite direction.
Right.
And so the Barracuda should not also be going the opposite direction, because how are the Sharks going to get any better? Like, the Barracuda do need to take a step forward. The resources do need to be put into this team. And you're right. I don't know if it's an ownership thing or what, a managerial thing, but the resources don't seem to be there. And that's how you end up with no real substantial promotion of the All-Star Classic coming in 2 weeks, for example.
Or that's how your veterans all leave every season.
Yeah, like Pouliot and Criscuolo and Agazino requesting a trade out, and Martin Kaut going back to Czech Republic, or Czechia, sorry. That the culture doesn't seem to have changed, and until that improves, I don't know how this team gets better, guys. So I agree with you. I think you're spot on that. We want to tell you, come watch this team. This is a great team. It's fun. They're fun. I mean, the games are still fun to go to, despite the team being very bad on the ice. Don't get me wrong. But we go to have a good time. There's nothing wrong with watching good hockey while we have a good time, right? Is that too much to ask?
Yeah, 100%.
I will say this, the Cuda, not to defend the Cuda, but they definitely didn't have that young wave like they did 2 years ago with like the wave of that Eklund wave, the Robbins wave board, like that whole wave kind of came in. And so this year, like, I love Cardwell, I love Mukhamadullin. They're not that same wave as we had 2 years ago. So I will say this, they didn't have that like young wave this year. Which I think is part of why there are some holes in the lineup, because a lot of their main guys did graduate. But that's not an excuse. Again, I don't think the Sharks care about the Cuda. If there's no coaching change, I think that's going to prove it even more. But
I'm gonna finish on this, and then we're gonna get into grades because we're kind of gone a little while here. I think that the thing that's also got to be concerning for the Sharks is that obviously, like, they've drafted a lot of college talent. Now, college guys, if they stay in college for 4 years and they don't sign, that August, they can become free agents.
Yep.
And, obviously, like, a junior player has a little less wiggle room, right? Like, he's going to age out. He has to go somewhere. So the AHL, that's where they might end up, and that might be palatable for him. But if I'm some of these college guys and I'm saying, well, maybe my game's not quite ready for the AHL yet, but their AHL team can't hold their veterans. Their AHL team can't, never is in contention for anything. Is that the best path for me to get to the NHL? And then they sign somewhere else. That's my concern.
Yeah, we've seen too many marches come around where the only players that seem to come in to the organization from college are the who? They graduated from what college?
Right. Yeah.
I didn't even know they had a hockey program. And so how are you going to convince the players that we do draft to sign here? That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But something to consider.
But our grades will be much higher, I'm sure. We'll find a way to grade the individual players much higher. Because to me, guys, I actually think there is talent on this team. The players themselves, there's some good players on this team. But as a team, it's not working. And it's not up for me to decide how they're going to do that, but someone
Lacey
who
for
gets paid
Barracuda
to do it needs to
head
figure
coach.
it out.
Lacey for Barracuda head coach. Let's get that going.
Sorry.
Oh no! I said it's not up to me.
So I kind of did my grades, and then I kind of looked, and I'm like, Some of these grades feel high for a team that's in dead last. So, I mean, the way I kind of looked at my grade, the way I graded people, and I'll let you guys explain your methodology. The way I kind of graded them is kind of like where I think they are, where I think they should be, and I kind of graded everyone in a bubble. Like, obviously, this team is bad. So maybe when people are done, they'll be like, wow, Ian kind of graded some guys really high. And that's fine. Let me know in the comments if you believe that that's a thing that I did, or if you have a disagreement with the way I've graded a guy. But I tried to look at each player in a bubble and kind of just tried to, look at where they are, where I think they should be at this point, and how well they're kind of meeting where I think they are compared to where they should be, if that makes any sense. Kevin, how did you do yours?
Yeah, I essentially did the same exact thing as you, Ian. I kind of graded based off of their individual play, as well as what I expected of them going into the season versus where they are now. But I'll the ones that factors in, I'll definitely mention that.
All right, Jules, did you
basically same thing as
Perfect.
You guys? Yeah.
I didn't really give good instruction. I said grade these players, be ready to go. So I'm glad that we kind of all did the same thing anyway.
That sounds like a Barracuda coach staff meeting.
There we go.
Go at him. Play your best.
So I'm going to start with, I think, who's probably going to be graded very high, and that is, of course, Daniel Gushchin, who has been just great this year. Daniel Gushchin, it's an A+ for me. I think that his game, I love the way his game has changed. When I first started seeing Daniel Gushchin last year, my concern with him was he was a player who I thought he was really talented, but he tried to do a lot by himself. And this year, he's really kind of flipped the script on that. Like, he's got a ton of goals. I think he's has 12 goals in the season, but his assist totals are, through the roof now. I think he's up to 21 assists now.
20,
21. Yeah, it's 20 or 21. Like, a guy who thought, oh yeah, it's this great shot. Like, the way his game has kind of evolved. I've really, really liked his game. So he's an A+ for me. Who wants to go next?
Sure. Lace. Oh, okay, cool. I think we're all gonna have the same grade.
Go next time.
No, you're all good. I think we all have the same grade. I mean, A+ for Gushchin. I've loved Gushchin as a prospect ever since they drafted him. He's the only third rounder that I think will ever hit for the Sharks. I'm kidding.
I mean, Thomas Greiss was hit for the Sharks, so there is that.
Yes. But I thought last year was a good intro year, and I was hoping Goosh would take that next step up and start carrying this team, because that's now his team now. And he's done that. He's done everything this team has asked him to do. I think he's developed in a lot of categories. His defensive play is getting better slowly but surely. So yeah, A+, no other comment.
I think Daniil Gushchin gets a B.
Ooh.
So Gushchin has been the best player on this team, and that's not saying much. I think that as a smaller player, Gushchin he's got that upward battle going against him at all times. So you talk about why doesn't he get called up? Because he's not 6'1" for one. I think if he was 6'1" and doing the things he does, he's already up in the NHL. But he's not super quick, not super slippery. He does have a lot of individual skill, and I like where you went, Ian, with he's found a way to use his teammates more effectively. Yeah. And I think that is the biggest step up that Gushchin has made this season. He has made some progress in the defensive zone, but as my friend Sean on the Calder Farmstead likes to point out, Gushchin's not going up to the NHL to be a defensive forward. So his defensive deficiencies can be overlooked a little bit in this particular case, but he's got to have the other intangibles, and I don't know if I see that with Gushchin. I still want to see more. I want to see him get faster on his feet, make quicker plays, and then that's where he'll get to an A range for me. So right now he's a B, but a solid B.
Fair enough. All right. Next up would be Thomas Bordeleau. I gave him a B+. I did not like Thomas Bordeleau's game at all to start the season. I was not even remotely upset when they sent him down. In fact, I feel like I was calling for him to be sent back to the Barracuda at the start of the season, because I don't think he was that good in the NHL. I think that once he did find his mojo, he did start going again. But he did get going, and I think once he got going, like, you definitely saw he kind of got that swagger left. I'm starting to have questions, though, about NHL upside with Thomas Bordeleau a little bit. I'm not completely off the Bordeleau train, but I do have to like look at the map and see where the stops are coming up. I think he's a B+. It's unfortunate he's injured now, because I think that, you know, every time the Barracuda seem to get weapons back, they lose another one. I would love to see what this team would do if they had, you know, some of these younger guys that they've relied on heavily to be healthy.
Yeah, for me, Thomas Bordeleau also gets a B. It's kind of the same reasons as Gushchin in respect of he's a smaller forward who has an uphill battle, and he needs to show me more of improvement in areas where he's not already strong. So we know Bordeleau has a fantastic shot. I still think he's more of a playmaker than a shooter, but he's got a fantastic shot. And this season, I think he has shown he's more than just a one-trick pony doing that one-timer from Pouliot or the one-timer from Eklund or whatever. We're seeing more offense on the rush and more jam to his game, more drive to the net. So I think he is going in there and showing, hey, I won't be pushed around despite my size. But I do think that his conditioning is constantly under scrutiny from the organization, and I don't see him showing that he's overcome that. I don't think he plays to pace at times, and I think that's why David Quinn doesn't seem to be his biggest fan, and that's blocking him from getting called up right now. Plus, he's hurt. But I think Bordeleau has, like, a game like tonight, this series against Charlotte needed Thomas Bordeleau to come out there and score a clutch goal. He was sorely missed there, and he has been the last little while. But Bordeleau gets a B for me.
Jules?
All right. I'm sorry, Thomas Bordeleau, in advance. I'm going to go B-. I have not been impressed with Bordeleau this year. He's one of the prospects I'm genuinely concerned for. Even before his injury, genuinely, he wasn't super hot before he got injured. Like, it feels like this year at the start had a really rough stint in the NHL, went sent back to the AHL, and was trying to find his swagger. And he has some games where he's on it. Like, he's a beast some games. Just the lack of consistency with Bordeleau right now is just, there's a lack of consistency. Some nights he's putting up 3 points.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at his game sheet, other nights has a -3. It feels like he's almost taken that next step that I would have liked him to take with his second-ish year turning pro, but it hasn't been there for me this year for me to grade him any higher. I don't know. Like, he has developed his other skills. I will give him that. Like, in the offensive zone, he's started to again, there's not just that one trick.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's more with Bordeleau that's we are not seeing this year at all. And I felt like we saw it last year more before that All-Star break. So B- for me.
Sure.
Next on the list is Mr. Brandon Coe. I gave Brandon Coe a C.
Oh, I was going to say start with me so we can
Go
build
ahead.
this up.
Fire it.
I give Brandon Coe an F.
Wow.
Brandon Coe is a 6'4" angel on the ice. The only time I saw him deliver any kind of a hit was when he hit Justin Sordiff from behind. And guess what happened tonight? Justin Sordiff got his revenge, hit him up high, and knocked him out of the game. Brandon Coe, yes, he's scored 7 goals. He also hasn't scored in 13 games. Why? Because he's not a contributor on the ice. Most of his goals this season have been him standing in front of the net, either deflecting a puck or knocking in a rebound off someone else's shot. And you need players like that. But Brandon Coe is a player who should be just barreling in on the defense, the opponent's defense. I see no drive in his game at all. He's just a guy. There's no room for a 6'4" guy, in my opinion, who's supposed to be one of our better prospects. So until he shows any semblance of being one of the better prospects on this team, he's an F.
Damn. Jules, go ahead.
I was going to give Coe an F also.
Wow.
I'm not. I've been purely disappointed with Coe. And one of my friends was like, that's the worst player on the ice, who knows nothing about hockey, by the way. This friend she was like, who's that guy? He's just not playing well. And he's not using his frame well. It's not clicking at all for him. I don't know what's going on. Who knows? But like, I've just been thoroughly disappointed. I was disappointed with him last year, but I gave him some slack because it was his first year turning pro. Now I don't know if it's McCarthy maybe holding that guy back. Don't know, but it's an F for me. I've been thoroughly disappointed with his season so far. He's just kind of floating on the ice, not doing anything, which is fine, but you're not even he's just not contributing at all to this team, it feels like right now. So it's an F for me.
All right, building back up, Ian.
I
didn't
gave him
expect
a C.
that.
No, look at Brandon Coe is one of the most frustrating players for me on this roster.
F
Because
for frustrating.
Because remember when we did our show, when we were supposed to have Nick and we didn't, and I called him AHL Luke Cunnin, and then he went on this teeter, right? And it's like, and I was like, every time I could, I'd be like, I called this guy AHL Luke Cunnin, but he is AHL Luke Cunnin. He is.
And now he's gonna go on a heater because
I called him out.
Ian's shit list is gonna be running low after this show.
No, but he is AHL Luke Cunnin. Like, he gets all these opportunities and can't do anything with them. And I don't you know what? I'll give Luke Cunnin credit. Luke Cunnin at least competes. I agree. There are nights where Brandon Coe just doesn't compete at all.
He's just
He's just there some nights, right?
He's a 6'4" perimeter player.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And again, when you look at draft pedigree, this guy should be better.
I mean, after his draft year, there was a lot, his D+1 year, there was so much hype for him.
I was so hyped for Brandon Coe.
Me too.
I saw his highlights. I don't see any semblance of his highlight reel with this team. I saw him just driving to the net, driving through players, not physically, just brutalizing players, but he showed no fear. And I just look at him being a complete softie.
Right. And I think that's the thing that bothers me. And I think there's some nights where you can see the tools. And I think that's the most frustrating thing about Brandon Coe is the tools are there. I don't know what lock he's put on the tool chest though, that he can't seem to remember the combination to. That's the problem with Luke Cunnin for me, because he's frustrating because I think you see it in glimpses, but the problem is that's it. That's all they are, is glimpses. You never, other than that heater that he went on earlier in the season, or even then, I think Kevin's right. He's, you need those guys, but don't you want that guy to be somebody different? You know what I mean? That guy shouldn't be Brandon Coe. I noticed
Riley Bezo be much more effective in these two games for Charlotte. Who? Riley Bezo? Who? He's basically Scott Sabourin, which we'll get to Scott Sabourin. There's one I'm actually happy with. But Riley Bezo was way more effective in these two games than Brandon Coe. And he's an undrafted, ECHL guy who's been getting more opportunity than anyone ever expected in Charlotte.
All right. The next player on my list is Henry Thrun. I'm fascinated to see where you're going to go. Jules, I'll let you start.
Oh, God. I'm going to go with a B for Henry Thrun. Now, this might be too high based off Lacey's facial reaction, but I think Henry Thrun, everyone kind of expect him to start in the NHL and just kind of take it running, and he struggled when he first got into this year at the NHL, which was fine. But I think he went to the Cuda and I think he played well, because I'm pretty sure there's also a human side to hockey, which I think about with these grades, getting set down from the NHL, you thinking, hey, I'm going to be that guy. Look at that defensive core. It's worse than some AHL team's defensive cores, and then getting sent down. I think he played well for the Cuda. He's a young defenseman. There's going to be those defensive lapses, but I think for what the Cuda needed them to do and how they were struggling, he played well. He held his own. He didn't impress me. He didn't pop off in any way, which is how you get to that A category for me.
Sure.
He didn't impress me. He didn't pop off the board, but he played well. He deserved his call up, even though I think it was just like we need a human who's played in the NHL at that point. I would have liked to see him stay a little bit longer. He was streaky with his points, but like I was expecting him to take more of a step in the AHL with points, but he played well. He was he was there. He played well. He got a B.
Kevin.
Yeah, Henry Thrun gets a B from me as well, and I would like to give him an A. I actually think as a Barracuda player, he probably deserves an A. I thought he was very steady. I thought he was the best defenseman that the team has had this season when he was out there. But I'm not giving him an A because I expected Henry Thrun to not ever play for the Barracuda this season. I actually thought he was going to solidify himself as a third pair. I don't want to oversell him. Mm-hmm. I did think he'd solidify himself as a third pair NHL defenseman this season. So I was a bit surprised that he got sent back to the Barracuda.
I wasn't. He didn't have clear waivers.
Okay. That aside, that roster decisions aside, that's a good point. But I do think that he was one of the only players who was playing mistake-free hockey in his own zone and the neutral zone when he was with the Barracuda. And Eric and Mark talked about it on After Dark last night. Like, he has looked better in this go-around with the Sharks than he did the early on in the season. And I think the AHL time has done him well.
Yeah, I gave him a B-. I think is like maybe this is like, recency bias is a hell of a drug, but I think I've liked his game more with the Sharks than I have with the Barracuda, and maybe that impacted the grade a little bit. I really like Henry Thrun. He's a player who I like, and I think he's a guy who, when I look at some of the guys that get to play defense for the Sharks, like especially like Nikita Hotyuk, who I think should be with this Barracuda team right now, and he should have been there a long time ago, and a guy like Henry Thrun gets sent down instead, like that's maddening to me. But I think he was fine defensively. Like I think he's done really good. I don't know, but I liked his game better in the NHL than I did in the AHL, and maybe it's again recency bias from more recent games.
I feel like we were expecting him to like take over the AHL and like be the star player, and like because he played so well for his final like 9 games of that last season with the Sharks. I feel like I expect him to like go in and like take over the AHL and like be that like kind of be a star in the AHL, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't there, and that's okay.
And maybe I just had too high expectations for him in the AHL. And maybe that's on me. I don't know. I came in a little bit under.
I like what Jules said, that I thought he'd have a little bit more offense in the AHL, because I don't think he's much of an offensive defenseman. He really only came to be, if that, his senior year for Harvard. But I did think he was one of those guys who might suddenly bust out offensively at the pro level, and at least at the AHL, and that didn't really happen. Yeah. But I thought he was steady defensively. So.
Yeah. All right. Leon Gavanke.
Not Henry Thrun.
Not Henry Thrun. I gave Leon Gavanke an A-. I think he's done everything that we kind of expected him to do coming into this team. He's definitely helped put points, given this team points from the blue line, which I think they really lacked last year. I think he's come in and done everything as advertised. I like him. It's a player who, again, I think when you consider like the roster management situations, he's a guy I'm surprised hasn't gotten a sniff at the NHL a little bit. But I think as far as like the Barracuda, he's been one of the few bright spots. Kevin?
I'm a little torn about the grade for Leon Gavanka. I think I'm giving him a B+. I think offensively he has been fantastic. He's shown exactly what he was last year for Manitoba, which was a pure offensive dynamite defenseman who scores or makes offensive plays at clutch times. One of the things where I think it actually ranks higher than where I detract from is he's an angry man.
Maybe that's why I like him
Like
so much.
Leon Gavanka, it's funny too because Leon Gavanka, I've talked to him a couple of times.
Mhm.
What a nice guy! Happy-go-lucky, big smile on his face. Looks like he enjoys the world. But like I mentioned, Justin Sordiff with that kind of a cheap shot on Brandon Coe tonight. Leon Gavanka was out there looking like Scott Saber and like, all right, someone's gonna die right now. Who do I have to go kill? You just hurt my teammate. Like, he is such a stand-up player, and I love that. Like, Leon Gavanka, I think, has had 4 fights this season. Mm-hmm. I've never expected that, especially when you're talking a pure offensive defenseman. So that gets big ups for me. But, boy, Leon Gavanka has a lot of defensive lapses.
Sure.
And so I look at, like, my boy Tim Heed, or I know there's another player who's escaping me right now. I'm thinking, I thought Tim Heed was more well-rounded than Leon Gavanka is. But yeah, he gets a B+ because I think he's had a lot of positive effects. It's just that if he was better defensively, he'd be in the NHL right now. But then again, are the Sharks really that good defensively?
I don't know. Nikita Hotu gets to stick around, so.
Oh, God. Watch a Hotik have like the best week of his life.
He's gonna
now.
come and like kill me one of these days.
Oh,
like...
absolutely, Ian.
And Leon Gavanka, I seriously thought when he got sent back to the AHL, I thought it was bye. I'm going back to my 4-year contract that I had with Adler Mannheim at the start of the offseason. I thought he was gone. So the fact that he's even stuck around this long, thanks for being here, Leon. We've needed you.
Yeah, I like him. Go ahead, Jules.
Yeah, I mean, I was hyped when they traded for this guy. Like, I think it was for Knyzhov, if I'm not not Knyzhov, the other Knyzhov. Thank you. I was really excited because I thought he would be a really good addition to either the Sharks getting offense for the blue line or the Cuda getting offense from the blue line. Like, he's a very much so offensive defenseman. I was not expecting him to be this mad or fight, like Lacey said. But I'm gonna give him a A-. I thought he was, he came in. We needed an offensive defenseman, I think, to produce points from the blue line, and that's exactly what he's done. You're not gonna get much defense out of that guy. Just not gonna happen. But yeah, I've liked him. I think he's really savvy with the puck. I think he's helped this Cuda team a lot with the breakout, and there's a reason why the Cuda's breakout is a lot more cleaner than a Sharks breakout. And you look at a guy, Gavanka is a big reason why. And I've also really just liked the Mukhamadullin Gavanka pairing. I thought that was one of the smart decisions McCarthy has made this year, and that has been very little. So an A- for me for Gavanka.
Shakir Mukhamadullin, Kevin.
Yeah, Shakir Mukhamadullin, I think I've said it, I think every show so far, that being paired with a defenseman like Leon Gavanka is exactly what he needs, because that's probably the type of defenseman he would play with in the NHL when he does get there. I think Mukhamadullin gets a B, though, because I think it might have been Michael or Like a Tiger in the Discord chat. Maybe it was Jesse. There's a bunch of you guys. I love you guys in the Discord chat. You guys,
we do
bring a lot of good conversation there about the Barracuda and the prospects. And someone there said that Mukhamadullin, like, he's got a decent shot, but and he does hold the zone pretty well offensively, but he doesn't know how to manage the puck when he gets it in the offensive zone. And I thought that was a really, it made me think a bit. And yeah, he does. He kind of fumbles around with it a bit, forces shots he doesn't have to, things like that. So that's from an offensive standpoint. I think his bread and butter is defense, and I think it's been pretty darn good this season. I think he's been, especially after Thrun got called up, I think Mukhamadullin has been the steadiest defenseman, the most reliable, but he's still learning, he's still growing, and man, he's got to become more physical. Like, you see flashes of it where it's like, yeah, get in there, dig in there, Shakir, but those moments are few and far between, and that needs to become more consistent before I want to see him get called up.
Gavanka needs to give him some of the anger.
Yeah.
I gave him a B plus. I feel like kind of a lot of echoing a lot of what Kevin said, right? Like there's parts of his game that I really like. There's some parts that I do have concerns with. I think the way, like you'd kind of like, in order to be a good defenseman in the NHL, there has to be an offensive upside to your game, whether that be, being able to hold the puck in the offensive zone or whatever. Like I think he makes a great first pass. Like I think he breaks out well, but you still need them. You still want, I just want a little bit more when you're in the offensive zone. And you want to make sure that the puck, if it goes to Mahmoudulin, like it's not going to go out because he seems, like you said, kind of just uncomfortable with the puck in the offensive zone. But I've liked his game a lot. And I think, coming over first year in North America, it's a different game over here. I can't stress that enough. I think there's definitely a learning curve there. And I think for the most part, though, I think he's acclimated really well to the North American game so far. So, I think that's why I gave him the B plus, because I think he's acclimated pretty well. And I think that I still think the sky's the limit for this dude. I think he's going to just keep getting better as he goes on. I think he's about, I think I want just a little bit more from him, though. I think given the pedigree and everything else. Jules, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to go with B. I was really impressed with how he uses his stick. Like, he just has this, long reach, and his stick most of the time is flawlessly placed. Like, there's really ever where I'm like, what are you doing with your stick, bud? Because you know how some players will just wail it, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing with your stick, man? But I'm going to give him a B. Like Ian, I know he's not going to be that offensive defenseman, but, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more offense coming into this season from it. And it might be like playing with a guy like Gavake, kind of, you don't really need to worry about that because he's just going to do everything for you. I was expecting a little bit more offense out of him. I thought defensively, he's going to be super, again, there's a learning curve, but I've been really impressed with his defense, with the lack thereof of structure on this team. But yeah, overall was expecting a little bit more offensively, but defensively, I could have not asked for anything else. Of course, there's a learning curve, and he still got to improve in a lot of areas. But yeah, he gets a B from me.
Radim Shimmick, I will go first. I gave Radim Shimmick an A. And here's why. One, Radim Shimmick's a plus 10 on this team. He is a plus 10. I think, look at Radim Shimmick's had some injury problems. I think it's really, this guy was an NHL regular 2 seasons ago. And I think he's come down. I think he's been a very steady, stabilizing force on this blue line. I know this team isn't very good defensively, but I think that he's come down. I think he plays hard every night. And I think for a guy who is basically fighting for his hockey career right now, that's exactly what you want to see from a guy like Radim Shimmick. I think Shimmick has come down. I think he's done a great job on this team. I think he you can tell that he's a leader on this team. And I think that's what you want from a guy, who's probably not playing where he wants to be, but I think he's made the most of it. I give Radim Shimmick a lot of credit for what he's done with this Barracuda team being as bad as it is. A guy like him who, who's basically riding out his contract now could have completely taken his foot off the gas and just been whatever. I'll just go back to Europe next year. Someone will sign me. Yeah, I don't know. Kevin.
I agree with everything you said. I give Radim Shimmick an A. Radim Shimmick has not complained. Nick has even said, he seems like a guy. He understands his role. He comes in. He does his job. He doesn't complain about it. Sure, he wants to be an NHL defenseman. Who doesn't? But he knows that he needs to be a leader for this young core. I think it's stressed even more when we talk about what a deplorable deployment the group has been this year in their own zone from the coaching staff. It's kind of weird. I'll get to it, but I gave Thrun a B. I gave Gavanka a B. I gave Muhammadulin a B. I'm giving Shimmick an A. They're all defensemen. How the heck are you saying this team is terrible defensively?
Right.
We'll get there. We'll get there. But Radim Shimmick there are times where he carries this team on his back. Like the Barracuda are down 3-0 to start the game. Shimmick's like, screw this. I'm going to be the first man in on the rush, trying to get this game back on the tracks. Like if he needs to play in either zone, all three zones, he'll go and do it. He doesn't care. He's out there to be a winner and a leader. And I've loved that about Shimmick's game this year. He gets an A.
Jules.
Everything y'all said, Radim Shimmick gets an A. Like, he's handled the situation perfectly. I honestly kind of want him to stick around in the Cuda for next year, but that's probably not going to happen. But, he's like, when they were down 3-1 and then made that comeback, I forgot what game it was. I'm sorry, my memory's like a goldfish right now. But like,
they've been down 3-1 a lot, Jules.
But like one game when they came, I don't remember, guys. I'm sorry, but like, he's taken this team on his back, and the fact that he's a plus on this team is beyond how. Is my first question to Shimmick. He's done everything I think that could be asked of him, so he gets an A. Kind of everything what you guys have said.
Nikolai Knyzhov, Kevin.
It's Nikolai Knyzhov. I almost want to give him an incomplete in some ways. I guess I'd have to give him a C+. He hasn't been bad. He's just, I think his mobility, I think he looks very strong skating wise. Like, he's had the knee injuries. I think he has really put in a lot of work into building that game back up. I thought it was either last night or the Bakersfield, the last Bakersfield game, but he was really moving around in every direction very well. But I wonder if he's still trying to find the rest of his game now that he's got his footing back. And I know I spoke with him at the season ticket holder skate, and I told him, like, keep your chin up, because like the team has a plan for you. It obviously you want to be in the NHL. And he was like, yeah, I really miss being in the NHL. I'm like, I know, of course you miss being in the NHL, sure, but don't look at this as demotion. Look at this as we want you to get back on your feet. And he seemed to appreciate that. And I appreciated the fact that he was wearing a turtleneck that night and I was not, and I felt very upset. But Nikolai Knyzhov, though, I think he's still trying to find his game. And until he finds it, I don't know that I can give him more than a C+.
Yeah, so this is a player that I struggled with. As far as like all the grades go, this is the one I struggled with the most, because I think Knyzhov, like, he was another guy who I'm like, send him down. Like, he wasn't getting regular reps in the NHL. Yeah. And I understand that there's, obviously waiver concerns, but I'm like, send him down. Like, get him regularly playing again. And the Sharks finally did that. There's not a whole lot of body of work here. I gave him a B. I think that he's kind of like I feel like he's kind of like similar to Bortolo, right? Where like I think he finally is starting to get his swagger back. I like this. I think there's an NHL defenseman here. I think
so too.
I just think that the Sharks, Mike Greer, for whatever reason, just really loaded up on a lot of veteran guys.
Mad defenders.
Like, just like an obscene amount of just a glut of just these veteran guys that are, they're NHL defensemen, sure, but should they all be NHL defensemen on the same team? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right? So it's hard, right? Because it's another player where, like, I kind of agree. It was like I really struggled with where to put him. I'm going to put him on a B. I think my love for the player might be there might be a little tilt into glasses here. I'm not going to lie. But that's where I have him. Jules?
I was gonna go with B again. I don't feel like there's enough here to grade him on like just genuinely because the Sharks took forever to send him down,
right?
Because of fucking waivers, which makes sense.
But Nikita Hotu gets to stay up. I don't understand.
Ian,
Stop it.
Nikita Hotuk is gonna pull up like a +5 this week with like 4 goals, and I'm gonna laugh.
Or he's gonna like get Russian hit to come to my house. One or the other.
I lost, but I again, I don't feel like there's enough to grade him. Like genuinely, like Lacey said, there's just not enough to grade him. I think he's looked good for him coming back from in all of those injuries that he's had. I think he's looked good, and I think over time he's just gonna get better. Yeah, kind of what you guys said. I'm gonna go with a B here.
All right, Valtteri Pulley. I gave Valtteri Pulley a D. I don't like Valtteri Pulley. I don't know what's there. I don't know what kind of defenseman Valtteri Pulley is supposed to be. He's such a guy. I don't know. Like I haven't liked his game. And like if I have noticed him, it's for the wrong reasons. And I don't know, man. Like I don't think I gave anyone an F.
Three -3s this season.
I think D is the lowest.
I forget he plays. I don't notice him half the time when he's on the ice. Like I notice him for the wrong reasons. I
didn't give anyone an F, so I think D is the lowest grade I gave out, and it's Valtteri Pulley. Jules.
I lovingly forgot this man was on the team for like
terrible.
So I'm just gonna be blunt there, but whatever he plays, like, he's 6'6". I don't feel like he uses his size properly.
No.
As a defender, I feel like if you're 6'6", and GMs love their fucking 6'6" defensemen, they love them, even if they can't skate for shit. Not saying Pulley can't skate, but like he just doesn't uses his size well. I kind of started noticing him for the wrong reasons. And when the Sharks signed him, I was super pumped because I was like, great. He seems like, I wasn't like super pumped. I was excited because it's a 6'6" defenseman. I became a GM for a second. I was like, oh, this is so exciting. He's going to actually use his size. And he just didn't. He's had some defensive lapses. So like,
and like,
now
here's
he's going to go
thing,
up.
Right? Like, this is a guy who, and again, defenseman playing first season on North America, he played in Finland last year. So not, similar ice, but not exactly the same. But like, I don't know, man. I again, like maybe this is a situation where like, after a season, maybe he figures it out and hopefully he improves. But I don't think he's adapted to the North American game very well.
And he was also, I think, injured for some of this season.
Yep.
So like, no shade to you, Pulley. Like, hopefully you figure it out.
Yeah, I know that Valtteri Pulley has had injury issues recently. He's missed 4 of the last 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it's more of a nagging thing. He's been kind of in and out of the lineup this season, so I do give him a D for that. But my expectations of him weren't super high because, as you mentioned, Jules, GMs love them some 6'6" defensemen. So for him to go undrafted, there clearly were flaws in his game coming in. I got to talk with him for a bit, had a pretty fun conversation, lighthearted conversation. I was telling him he needs to develop the Burnsy butt check. Now that Burns is gone, I said, you're 6'6". He was telling me.
How about the starfish?
Yeah. But no, Valtteri Pulley has told me up front. He said the pace is a lot faster than he was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
You're right, Ian, about the Finnish league's kind of weird because they have rinks of all shapes and sizes.
Right. Yeah.
Like, and a lot of them are comparable to North American ice, but at the same time not. So Pulley told me that it's not so much adapting to the ice, it's been adapting to the pace. He says they play at a lot more feverish pace, a lot higher intensity than he was used to, and so that's caught him off guard. And so he was considered a mobile defenseman by Finnish standards, but here it's not really showing. And as an offensive-minded defenseman who has put up almost no offense, it shows that he is still working his way through what he can and can't do here. Another thing is that Walter Pulley has been playing almost all right side defense, and he's a left side defenseman. So he has now been having to adapt to playing in a new country for the first time and learning the opposite side of what he's used to. So he gets a D, but I understand why he gets a D. And hopefully, like you said, next year, I think he's under contract for another year. Hopefully he can take what he learns this season and apply it in the off season and come out that much, look at Kanija. Now I said it. Artemi Kanyatsev, how terrible he was in year one and how much better he was last year. I hope Pulley can make that same kind of stride.
Yeah.
He is under contract for next year.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I think the one thing that I do want to caveat, right? Again, it's a different pace. It's also like he's 22, like he's young, right? So
yeah.
There's definitely, I think there's room there to grow. I just don't think this season has gone very well for him, and I think that's just, I think it's a fair grade, unfortunately.
And wait, can I add one more thing to Pulley?
100%.
Like I've said this with goalies, and I'll say this with defensemen. Defensemen, when they develop, is such a weird game and thing, because they take a lot longer to develop than a forward does. It takes them just a while to pick up the pace of how fast the pros are. So who knows, next year Pulley I think will come in and be so much better. So just giving the guy some credit, it's a hard ass league to adapt for, especially as a defenseman, and especially playing under the structure right now that the Cuda have.
All right. Next, we're going to get into the goalies, and then we'll get into everyone else. Next up, so we're going to go with the goalies first. So the first goalie we are going to talk about is Magnus Krona, who we already talked about a little bit earlier. Jules, I'll let you go first on this one.
He had a rough start to the season. I will say with the Barracuda goalies, it feels like every week there's a new goalie who's like, oh, he might be something, and then he just kind of disappoints us in 2 weeks. So I will say there has been a lot of that this season with the goalies, but I'll give Krona a B for what the Sharks put him through 2 weeks ago, saying you're starting your game versus you're starting your first NHL game versus the Oilers. He's bounced back extremely well. I think there's a goalie in there somewhere, and his grade has definitely gone up this past week with how he's played, because it feels like he's steadied this Cuda team. And if he continues playing like that for the rest of the year, his grade's just going to go up. So for me, it's a B.
Kevin?
I'm going to give him a C+ for the same reasons. I love his ability to bounce back. I think he's been in some really crummy situations in both the NHL and the AHL this season. And he got off to a real rough start. At the start of the season, I would have said F. But he's really built his game back up, and right now he's at a C+ to me.
I gave Magnus Krona a B+, and he's the highest, spoiler alert, he is the highest I rated of the three goalies. The thing with Magnus Krona that's impressed me, I have questions about his game converting to an NHL game, because I think he is a goalie who relies a lot on his positioning, and I don't think his lateral movement's very good. And I don't think it's at an NHL level. That being said, this guy came in, didn't have his game sorted even at the AHL level, gets called up because of injury, gets thrown into one of those 10 goal against games. He had no business. He didn't have a game in the AHL. What are we doing putting him in that in the NHL? I thought it was such an awful thing to do to the guy, But, for someone to start the season like that, we've seen goalies where a situation like that derails their whole season. And to Magnus Krona's credit, he's bounced back every time he's been kind of put in one of these situations. He gets called up again, and then they start him against Edmonton, who was just starting to go on a tear. A team like that, obviously, I think, had underwhelmed in the first part of the season. I think that's fair to say about the Edmonton Oilers. I think there was something obviously wrong with McDavid at the start of the season, but by the time Krona's starting against them, McDavid's healthy, this team's all starting to click. And again, he goes back down to the AHL after that. Not a good game for him by any stretch of the imagination. Now the team in front of him owes him dinner forever after the way they played in front of him also, but goes back down to the AHL and gets back to work. And it seems like no matter how hard this guy gets knocked down, he gets up, and not only does he get up, but he gets better after it. He's better for it. I've liked Magnus Corona. I do have questions if there's an NHL goalie there, but I think for a guy who's getting his first taste of pro hockey, I think he's done well, especially considering some of the shit he's gone through this season. So next up is Eetu Mäkiniemi. I guess I'll start here. I gave Mäkiniemi a C. I probably being generous. This is a guy who has gone through it injury wise, and maybe this is a guy where you want to give an incomplete to. Although the Barracuda seem to want to play him over Romanov, which is a choice. I think. Last year, there was a lot of grumbling down the stretch about how they played Aaron Dell, and they wouldn't bring Strauss-Mann up. But I understood it, because I think Strauss-Mann was fine, but he wasn't good. I think Georgi Romanov has been at least good. Like, maybe, again, like getting his first taste of pro hockey, North America, everything else. But like Mäkiniemi is the guy who's supposed to be the veteran. This is supposed to be his team. And he just, despite getting chances to kind of retake the throne, he's kind of stumbled every time. And I think it's frustrating. I'm probably too generous here, but again, I do want to acknowledge the injury issues. Jules.
I'm going to say C-, also because of the injury issues. And again, I am trying to count the human aspect of this.
Sure.
Just like not that much. I know it's about the hockey and stuff, but like he has gone through a lot of injuries. I was expecting him to come in here and take over the throne for the starting goaltender for the Barracuda, and he just hasn't done that. He's lacked some consistency. There's some games where I'm like, okay, I think he found his game a little, and the next game is just, boy, it's off the rails real quick. So yeah, it's a C-. The injuries plus lack of consistency, and like he's not looking right this year. So C-. What
do you got for you two?
Yeah, he's not looking right this year. I'm going to give him a C- as well. And this really does not have anything to do with the game he started last night. Let's actually not forget that he started the season 3-2, believe it or not, and looked like he was trending upward about 6 weeks ago. But since then, it's kind of fallen off the rails, and he just, we don't know if there's still injuries creeping in here and there. So I don't want to grade him too harshly, but he is the guy who was expected to just be the number one goalie this year. And he's looking anything from that, or anything except that. So keep it simple. He gets a C-. I think he's still got potential to seize the number one job, but I kind of want to get into Romanov and then give my overall thoughts on the goaltending.
Yeah, sounds good, because I kind of want to do the same. Ticklefish says, great job, guys and gal. Very enjoyable listen. I'm glad that you are enjoying the show, obviously. Again, like I said, this is something that we're going to try and get off the ground a little more regularly, so we can get a little more Barracuda content on the YouTube channel, because that's what we are. We're a YouTube channel, so we should probably have our content there. Georgi Romanov, I guess I'll throw it back to you, Kev. Where you got Georgi? So
I'm going to give him a B- right now. He's my highest of the three goaltenders. And this is one where it's what he's hit, performance versus expectation is totally factoring in here, because Romanov definitely does not have the best stats of the three goalies. In fact, I believe he may have the worst.
But Mäkiniemi's worst.
Is okay. All right. But Romanov has, I think, been in the games where the team has played their worst. And I think Romanov in most of his starts has been the lone bright star in those games for the most part. So you see games where it's like, I think like 4 of the last 5, he's given up at least 4 goals against. And that's probably why he's in Wichita right now.
Right.
But I think that the fact that he's even played a third of the number of games that, or, probably like 3 times as much as I was expecting to see him this season is a plus. I actually thought Beck Warm had more of an opportunity to get games in than Georgi Romanov did to start the year. So I think that the team just needs to play better in front of him, and collectively, I think the structure has failed all 3 goalies, which is why I kind of lump them in the same grade range. I think that no one has really stood out, but in a negative or a positive way, and mostly because this team's structure is non-existent.
Yeah. Jules, go ahead.
Yeah, again, my expectations for Romanov were like him and Beck Warm were kind of on the same level for me. Genuinely, I was like, these guys have no shot in making they're going to be our ACHL goalies. Great, let's move on with life. He's just really impressed me throughout this whole year. Again, the structure does not help goalies right now for the Sharks or the Cuda, so like their numbers are not going to be what they're supposed to be. But he's made some ridiculous saves. I remember they were playing the Wranglers and he outbattled Dustin Wolf, who is the best goalie in the AHL, maybe other than Askarov. But like, this guy, from my expectations of him, just completely blew me out of the waters. So for that, he's getting a B just purely because some of the games he's pulled are just simply ridiculous. And he's been a bright spot on a Cuda team that has very minimal bright spots. It's for like 2 or 3 players.
Yeah, I gave Georgi Romanov a B. I think I've been like, again, he was a guy who for me, I think it's like Kevin said, it's kind of an expectation versus reality situation where I thought he'd come in and he really surprised me. I didn't, even in the preseason, I didn't think much of Romanov. I'm like, okay, great, whatever. But then when the game started to matter, Georgi Romanov came in and was a nice breath of fresh air for a team. Like I said, at the start of the season, Magnus Corona couldn't find his game at all. Mäkiniemi was injured. And so, it kind of fell to Romanov to really carry the ship. And I thought he did well. So I give him a B, right? And it's hard because I think like, obviously, like there's rankings here. Like obviously the organization looks at a guy like Mäkiniemi and they want to see him succeed because, look, they could trade, Kaapo Kähkönen could get traded at the deadline and they're going to have to call someone up. And I think going into the season, they were hoping that guy would be Mäkiniemi. And I don't think it is anymore. I think now that's Magnus Corona. Now, again, I already said, like, I don't know if I think there's an NHL goalie in Magnus Corona, but they could ride out the rest of the season and figure that out next year. But again, it's a situation where you have so many goalies and not a lot of places to play them. And that kind of bothers me because, again, like Kevin alluded to early in the thing, I don't really pay attention to Wichita, but Wichita is the worst team in the ECHL.
Yeah, I'm corrected. They're the 3rd worst team. Okay.
The 3rd worst.
So are they the best out of the 3 we follow? No, I'm kidding.
But no. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a situation where it's like, God, can one of these guys just be in like in a winning situation? Like, I understand, like, you just want one of these guys, right? And it's a situation where you have 3 guys again. And now I'm starting to wonder, like, is Mäkiniemi maybe a guy that they trade as a throw-in for a player going forward? Because eventually you want to get these guys playing, and you want to get these guys playing in good situations. Like, I think there's definitely like a purpose to the ECHL, and you see guys, especially goalies. You see a lot of goalies that start out in the ECHL and then work their way up. That's not uncommon. It's a lot more common for goaltenders to do that than any other position in hockey, to be honest. But again, you want a guy like Georgi Romanov, who I think has done good things to get games in the AHL. You want them to move up. So I'm I don't know what the plan is going forward for the team, but I've liked Georgi Romanov. I don't know if there's an NHL goalie there. I'm not sure there's an NHL goalie in this group. But I think for the AHL, I think they've been fine. Again, I said earlier, you look at overall, if your anger is with the goaltending on the Barracuda, you're not watching the games. Because the structure in front of them is garbage. Right? So
yeah, that's why I kind of wanted to lump all the goalies in one section in this part of the list, because I think a lot of them, their faults have not been their own. I think Krona at the start of the year, his faults were his own.
Yes.
McNiemi's been hurt, whatever. Romanov has been a little inconsistent from the start of the game to the end of the game. But overall, I think the team's let them down. And so I don't fault the goaltending at all.
Yeah, Molasses, I'll throw the numbers in the chat here. We got to move this along a little quicker because we're running a little long. But yeah, Romanov, 10 games played, 30 what do we got here?
10 games played, 893 save percentage.
Yeah.
McNiemi, 11 games played, 878. And Krona's played the most at 18 games. He's got an 896. So, yeah. But what was it? Like Krona was at like 843 or something. So, I mean, going up 50 points isn't bad.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I feel like overall, the one thing I will say about the Barracuda goalies is, though, I think they've been fine, but there's been very few games where I've gone, oh, what a goaltending performance. Like, am I off?
Yeah.
Am I off there?
You're the Krona one in the 1-0 loss to Calgary in Calgary might be the only time this season where I was like, wow.
Yeah, bingo.
That goalie stood on his head.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that I would say, like, against the goalies, is that there's been so few times. I think you're right that the Magnus Krona versus the Calgary Wranglers game is definitely one, and I'm glad you brought that up. But for the most part, there's never been a wow, what a goaltending performance, you know?
Yeah, the goalies have not been the issue for the Cuda this year.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let's kind of putt through this a little bit quicker, I guess. Kyle Rao, where are you at on Kyle Rao, Kevin?
I think he almost gets an incomplete, but I will give him a C. No, B minus. I think that he has shown himself capable in the offensive zone. It seems like he is in on a lot of the goals, which is exactly what you want out of a veteran leader who's basically there to fill in for Justin Bailey, who may not be coming back this season.
I don't think he's coming back.
Way it seems to be showing. So Kyle Rao is here to get some veteran minutes, get his game back, because he wasn't even playing up until that. I think he's been fine. I think if he could finish some of his scoring chances in tight more, that would be beneficial to him. But I liked Rao's game. B minus.
Yeah, I gave him a B. A lot of the same reasons you said. I think he's been fine. It's hard because I don't think there's a huge body of work there, but I think he's kind of given me what I've expected when he came in. So I mean, yeah, a B. Jules?
B. What the Cuda need him to do, he's doing. So and
it's not
else
like
is
it's not
extra
above and beyond. It's just like just been steady.
Yeah. The minus is simply because I want him to score a few more goals. That's all.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Cole Castles. I gave Cole Castles an A. I think he's done. Again, he's a guy who's come in, who's done everything that I would expect him to do on the AHL. I think he's contributed offensively. I think he's been a good leader. I don't really have any complaints with Cole Castles' game. Jules.
Yeah, I was just gonna say A. Castles has been honestly kind of one of the small bright spots in this team. He's offensively, he's produced. He has on the season right now 4 goals, 19 assists, 23 points. I feel like he's definitely, they brought him in to kind of be that leader and kind of replace some of the offense that Agazino and Criscolo, when they left, left behind, and he's done just that. So I'm gonna go A minus. It's kind of in that territory, but my expectations were quite low of Castles coming into the season. I know he had a good season prior with the Belleville Senators, putting up a ton of points, but he was also shooting at like a 15.2 shooting percentage. So wasn't fully expecting that to translate over to this year. But A minus, he's done, I think, what the Cuda need him to do.
Kev, did you?
Yeah, I also give Cole Castles an A minus. I think that it's been a little bit of found money with him.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that he had a really solid year in Belleville, but up until then, he had a pretty nondescript AHL career. I was hoping that last season, after coming into the Barracuda this season, I was hoping last year was not just a one-off, and I think he's shown that he has learned something in his time in professional hockey. And I think he has somewhat filled the void of Andrew Agozzino. Maybe he doesn't have quite that determination, but he wins a ton of faceoffs. And he, for me, is easily the best penalty killer of the forward group, without question. So he does show a lot of positive contributions at both ends of the ice. So I really wasn't expecting that. I thought coming into this, I'd say a C, but he's really proven his worth. So I'll give him A minus.
Tanner Kaspick. Kevin, I'm going to shoot back to you.
So I'm going to give Tanner Kaspick a B plus, only, again, because I expected to give Tanner Kaspick a D. I didn't think anything of Tanner Kaspick going into the year. I thought he was just okay. We got a body at least to fill in for somewhere, because we needed it. But another guy who is just a dog on faceoffs, and so before we turn the puck over at the blue line every time, we do have possession, and he helps with that.
Yeah.
I've actually liked him a lot more, and my understanding is he's quite the ladies' man. So good on you, Tanner Kaspick. I guess you get an A in that regard, but hockey-wise, I'm giving you a B.
Jules?
Well, I'm gonna go with B again. Him and Castles have been really good on faceoffs and steadying the faceoffs. And it's kind of a young center core other than them, so it's kind of important to have those two veterans who can kind of win faceoffs for you. But he's been good. He's never been the guy who puts up a lot of points if you look at his AHL career, so he's been exactly kind of what they brought him in to do, like I've said, with the other 18 veterans this team has. So yeah, he gets a B for me.
Yeah, I think I gave him a B minus. I don't know. He's not the most flashy of players, I guess, and I think that's you have to for Tanner Kaspick's a guy you really have to watch to kind of see his, because it's not going to show up on the score sheet. What he brings to the game isn't going to show up on the score sheet like a Cole Castles would. But I've liked him. I think he's been good. I think he's done a good job for this team, again, being, one of the more veteran guys coming in and trying to stabilize this absolute gong show of a team. I think he's been fine. Nathan Todd, I gave a B plus. He's good. I like him. I like Nathan Todd. I think he's done good things. Again, maybe not the most flashy of players, but I think he's kind of done what you would expect him to do on this team, Kevin.
I give him a C, and it's not for the results, the statistics. Mm-hmm. The thing about Nathan Todd is I have never known what Nathan Todd was throughout his career or this year. I look at him and I'm like, I don't see anything special. He's not a good skater. He doesn't really make great plays with the puck. And yet suddenly he's got 2 points a night and has a 5-game point streak. I don't get it.
Yeah, it might be recency bias there for that grade, but
so that's why I give him a C, because I look at him and I'm like, but he's the third leading scorer on the team. So
yeah. Jules.
Yeah, when I looked at who's leading the Cuda in points, I thought I had to get my eyes checked because I saw Nathan Todd and I was like, you're kidding, right? But also the meme was getting more popular on the Discord. I don't know who does it, but the Nathan Todd point. Yeah, so that's how I know Todd has a good night, because I look at the Discord and I'm like, oh, there you go, and I'm like, how is this guy getting any points? But he is. I think just for the points and like the fact that I really was not expecting jack shit coming from this guy. I'm gonna give him a B minus. Like, he's putting up points on a team that needs offense and got all basically their offense is getting shredded to pieces every night because of how injured the Sharks are. But he's putting up points. He's doing that. I don't know what type of a player he is. I might never know, but he's putting up points.
Maybe I should give him a B minus because he's exceeded my expectation points wise. He is not the new Nick Cicek. We need to stop this right now. I don't hate Nathan Todd. I just think, and it doesn't need to be anything more than that. So let's stop it right now.
I
People
love
in the
you
chat.
guys. I love the chat.
I love
you're
the
amazing.
chat. I love the chat and I love
Chat,
the Discord.
keep it up. Keep it up. Let's get a new Nick Cicek here.
Oh my god. I'm curious. I think this one's going to be wildly. Maybe I'm like wildly divisive from everyone else. Scott Sabourin. A couple of guys. We're going to do a couple of guys that have been called up. Scott Sabourin. I'm really interested to see where the grades come in on this. I think people are going to get mad at me. I gave Scott Sabourin a B. I think that I liked what he's done with the Barracuda. I think there are nights where he is one of their best players, but for a team that can't kill a penalty, and I understand this is Sabourin's game to a point as well, but for a team that can't kill a penalty, Scott Sabourin is, even on nights where he's your best player, he's also your biggest problem. B.
Yeah.
Kevin.
I give Scott Sabourin an A. I can't believe it.
You heard it here, folks.
See, I think a lot of people would give Scott Sabourin an A.
You want to talk about a player I dislike? There were very few players in hockey who I disliked more than Scott Sabourin when the Sharks signed him. I was like, this guy is a no-talent clown. He doesn't do anything hockey-wise on the ice. He sucks. How does this guy keep getting contracts? And all I've seen this season is him getting minutes way above what I thought was his talent level. Like Scott Sabourin's getting power play one time from John McCarthy. Like, what is going on? But he doesn't look terrible out there. Like, he's the one battling in front of the net. And sometimes he pulls off some really nice moves in one-on-one situations where I'm going, I would have, between the legs. Yeah. Scott Sabourin between the legs. Are you kidding me? Like, he's done it twice this season. So Scott Sabourin gets an A for the fact that I thought all he could do was just punch people in the head.
Austin Matthews would agree with you.
You know what the funny thing about Scott Sabourin is too? Sorry, Jules, I didn't mean to cut you off. And I'll get
no,
you in a
you're
second.
all good.
But like, I think the annoying thing about Scott Sabourin is like, other than like, I know he got into a fight and killed a guy last night, but like, he doesn't really fight in the NHL. At least not that I can see.
I think Scott Sabourin is the new Michael Haley, where he's been around for so long that he's like, man, I'm too old to be fighting in the AHL. But like, if I get to the NHL and I need to make a difference, I'm going to do it. Because Haley would never fight in the AHL for the Barracuda either.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Austin Matthews looking at his jersey.
I think Austin Matthews would give Scott Sabourin an F, but I mean, I have to give him an A, right? Like, Jesus Christ, I was like this. Want. I mean, okay, no, not the internet doesn't agree with that, but I'm gonna give him an A. I think. Listen, I thought he was just there to punch people and kind of be a nuisance. Mind you, he has like 92 penalty minutes.
He sure does.
So like, I don't know. He sorry, I thought I muted my mic. He gets an A from me. He's produced offense. He's thrown hits. He's helped this team win the very minimal games that this team has won. So nothing that hasn't been said. He gets an A. And Austin Matthews, look at Scott Sabourin. Here you go. He's coming for your goals.
He has 9 goals.
I know.
Like, what?
I know. Justin Bailey, Jules, I'm going to throw it back to you.
A. I love that man. That's it. No, I'm kidding. No, I've really liked Justin Bailey, and I think the Cuda have missed him ever since he got called up to the AHL. I mean, I have to give him an A, and there's a lot of recency bias in there, just being honest with you. But I've loved that signing ever since I saw him, like the first day the Cuda play, ever since I watched the Cuda for the first time this year. His speed, his tenacity, his work ethic. And I think the Cuda do miss him. And I would love like a guy from Cardwell to learn from a guy like Bailey, who has like that work ethic and stuff like that. So he gets an A from me, and I think the Cuda do really miss him.
Kevin.
He gets an A- for me for the same reasons. You guys know I've been a Justin Bailey guy for a real long time. And so I've been happy that he had his time with the Barracuda. I said he gets an A+ on the Pucknologists there last week for the Sharks, just because 6 weeks ago he didn't even have a contract.
Yeah.
But for the Barracuda, I give him an A-. And the reason I give him the minus, he takes way too many penalties, or took way too many penalties for this team. So
same.
This team loves penalties.
And this is kind of the reason why I gave him a B. I gave him the same grade as Savarin because it's the same thing. Everything he brings, he can also take away. I do think that the Barracuda miss him a lot. I do get angry that instead of calling up Gushkin, they gave him an NHL contract. Just again, I don't want to go back into that rant again, but I try not to let that affect my grade. I think he's been exactly what I expected him to be, which is a B. It's not above, it's not below. It's exactly what I thought he would be, and I think he brings that. Ethan Frisch, Kevin.
Ethan Frisch gets an A from me. He was just kind of, first off, he was the only player from last season's free agent. No, sorry, that's not true. Him and Anthony Vincent were the only ones from last season's free agent pickups who stuck around this year. And I thought Frisch, being a North Dakota guy, that gives me a little bit of bias right there. But Ethan Frisch has been out there, one of the most dependable defensemen, behind Muhammadulin and Shimmick anyway. He's out there on PK1. He's not a big guy. He's not a physical guy. But he goes out there. He's a +8 this season. Tonight was only the third time all season that he's been a minus player. So Frisch, he's just kind of there, but for being a guy who I don't even think he made the opening night lineup. He's solidified himself as having an important defensive role with this team. So I give him an A.
I gave him a B+. For a lot of the reasons that you said. I don't know if this is ever going to be an NHL player, but I think that he's been steady on a team that is remote, that has no remote steadiness for most of the time. I think it also, when it comes down to like expectations, I think he's exceeded my expectations. So that's why I gave him a B+. Jules, go ahead.
I always kind of go by like the best defenders, like those like steady, like defensive are the ones that you kind of never notice, but they're there. And that's kind of what he's been for the Cuda all year. Again, it's a little bit of expectations over reality with my grading here, because not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting Ethan Frisch to do what he's doing this year. He's very steady defensively. He's kind of, again, a small bright spot and like a lack of bright spots. And when I went to the game versus them in Ontario, like I was really impressed by him in person. Like he is quite the defensive. He knows what he's doing defensively. Will he make it to the NHL? Who knows? But he gets an A- for me.
Frisch might be the only defenseman on this team who doesn't bail out in front of the net. It seems like he's the only defenseman who actually stands his ground in front of the net.
Yeah. Well, this team just lets anyone in front of their net, so that's not hard.
Brad Merrick, I'm going to throw us to you first, Jules.
That guy was tearing up the ECHL before he got called up to the AHL, and it just seems like he can't find his game a little right now in the AHL. I haven't been super impressed with him. I mean, I was excited for him based off what he was. If you guys don't follow the Thunder, and I don't blame you, I followed them a little at the start of the year. He seemed to be putting up a lot of points there. which was great. He got called up, but I don't know. I feel like he hasn't found his footing yet. I've not been super impressed with him. So I'm gonna go with B minus. I don't know what to expect from him. He's been good. He's been good, but he's not been great. So B minus.
Yeah, I gave him a C. There's not a whole lot to. Again, there's some players that we listed that I don't think there's a lot to really draw from. I just think for a team that needs goals as badly as this one does, I think there's an AHL scorer there, but we're not seeing it this year. It feels like.
I think Brad Merrick had a little bit of a hot streak where it was him, Weisblatt, and I can't remember who the left wing was, but they were the fourth line for this team, and they were the only ones producing there for about 2 good weeks. And so for that, I give Merrick a C+. But other than that, he hasn't been bad. He's in a fourth line role, and so he's there. C+.
Artem Guriev, Kevin.
Artem Guriev, man, I don't even know if I can rate him. I mean, he's been better than I think we talked about going into the season in the sense of he hasn't been as, I don't know, stupid with his aggression or over-aggression this year. Although tonight he had a pretty wild hit on Jake Wise, so he's still got that in him. I don't know if I can grade him, guys, but he's been okay.
I present to you the new Nick Cicek, Artem Guriev.
Nah.
No.
Because I liked Nick Cicek and I soured on Nick Cicek. That's the difference.
I don't like Artem Guriev as a player. And I was baffled when, because, sometimes look at guys get drafted and then they finish playing their junior career wherever. And some of these guys get signed and some of these guys don't. I was baffled that Artem Guriev was a guy that they signed. I don't think there's an NHL defenseman here. I think I've never really liked his game. I think he's a nasty piece of work. I think there is some nastiness in his game, but not in a good way. Like, yeah, you want a guy who's going to come and, lay the body really hard and do all the things right. But like, my bitch with Guriev is, yes, he's going to play the body, but he's going to take himself so far out of the play to do that hit. Like, that's he has a one-track mind. I am going to kill you into the boards, and it doesn't matter what is happening on the rest of the ice. And nothing I've seen from Guriev so far has changed my mind on this. Artem Guriev is a D.
All right. I like Artem Guriev, but I don't like his hits. I like the motor the guy has, if that makes sense. Like, the dude has a motor and he will go. But like, so I like Artem Guriev for that reason. I think he's had some good games. I think we have to give him a little credit. He's had some decent games. I don't think this is going to be an NHL caliber defenseman at all. I don't think you can pull those hits in the NHL and get away with it. The offensive guys are not, they're too good for that.
You can't leave the play like he does.
Yeah,
like he gets tunnel vision to make a hit, and he takes himself out of, like, it's like, oh, I killed this guy, but the puck is 2 zones over. Like, it's 2 lines over now.
No, yeah. So for that, like, I like the motor, but there's not really anything there with Guriev. And I don't think anything's really going to develop out of him. So overall this season, I would give him a C minus. The motor's there, the energy's there. It's just lacking in, let's put this all together into an NHL or a defenseman at all at this point.
What I like about Artem Guriev is he does bring a different element than all the rest of the defensemen on this team. But for me, if you need that, bring back Patrick Seeloff from last season. Patrick Seeloff was actually about the only steady defenseman defensively that this team had, and the only physical defenseman. And for a team who needs steady defense and physical defense, I'd rather have brought Seeloff back than brought Guriev in.
Yeah.
I don't think he was ready to make the jump. And he might have been forced to. I don't remember the exact conditions of what Guriev. I don't feel like he's ready for the pros.
Yeah.
The next one, and this breaks my heart a little bit that I'm going to do this, is Jacob Peterson, and I'm giving him a C. I was so excited about his game last year. And then he's another guy, right, who just kind of like, he was up with the Sharks for a bit, and I think he was fine, but he wasn't great. And then I just feel like he came down and he's never really found his game, like the game that he had last year. And it breaks my heart because this is a guy I was really excited about. And yeah, I think if you want to go like guys who have just genuinely disappointed me this season, Jacob Peterson is right beneath Brandon Coe. Kevin.
Jacob Peterson, I thought looked really good on opening night, and then he got hurt and he missed a bunch of time. And then he came back and was just kind of there, and then he got hurt again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's come back and not scored ever since he came back. I believe that is now 14 games in a row without a goal. I think Peterson played his best game tonight since opening night, and that was promising.
Yeah, and I did miss tonight's game, so
I'm giving him a D because he has been a shell of what he was last year. But I also think that he hasn't been getting the minutes up until tonight.
Yeah, true.
That we saw him get last year or expected him to get. And so, yeah, I'm giving him a D. And I just realized we left one off the list real quick, so I'm just going to lump him in. Oscar Lindblom.
Oh,
I'm going to give him a D plus for the same reasons. I was really hoping he was going to come in like gangbusters, and I thought opening week he played really well, and then he got hurt, and he hasn't found his game ever since. But then he scored 2 goals last night. So both Peterson and Lindblom, I'm hoping they're back on the upward trajectory, but neither of them have met my expectations. So D for both.
Yeah, Jules, you can do Lindblom as well at the same time.
Okay. So Ian, you made a good comparison with Coe. Like you were just expecting a lot more from them. With Peterson, I have faith he'll get it back on track. I don't have that same faith with Coe.
Yeah, fair enough.
With Peterson, I think last year I was so happy when they traded for him. I know we were giving up the handsome Scott Reedy, but I was really glad to see, like, to have him come in, and because I thought he could help the Cuda, I thought he could help the Sharks, and he did help the Sharks. But this year, he just hasn't really been the same. That mojo, like with Bordelot, is gone, and it might have been the injury. So I was expecting a lot more out of him, and he might not be getting the minutes because he's playing for. Never mind, I'm not going to say that, but I thought overall I was just expecting a lot more from him. And I think tonight, like Lacey said, it's starting to come back a little. But I would like to see more for him. And I'm not giving up on the dude. I still think he's probably going to be a pretty good bottom 6 forward in the NHL. But for right now, I got to give him a D+.
Yeah, it's just because Lindblom came up. I think Lindblom again, like the story, right? You just want good things for this guy. I think he's done on Lindblom, like he hasn't produced other than the 2 goals the other night. Like I think he had a huge slump before that, and that's really frustrating, right? Like, because this is a player that you want good things for, but obviously you thought at the AHL level like something would click for him, and I don't know where things went so wrong with Oscar Lindblom. And it's sad, man. Like again, because he's a guy that you just want to root for. Again, I'd probably give him a D, man, because again, like you just want good things for this guy with what he has gone through. You just want good things for him. And at the AHL on this team, like he should be a guy who should be able to carry some of the offensive load, and it just hasn't happened, and it's super sad, and super unfortunate. And like Jacob Peterson, it's a grade like that I feel bad giving him, but at the same time, how can you not? Like that's just the facts are in front of you, and you have to go with the facts. I'm gonna finish up with two players that we do have grades for, and then we'll talk about Tristan Robbins again and Larocque, who obviously don't have enough of a sample size of games to really give them a grade that would matter at this point. So let's do Ethan Cardwell first. I gave Ethan Cardwell.
People have been waiting for this one.
People have been waiting for this
one. That's why we put it to the end here. Like
that's why.
Ethan Cardwell, I have given an A- to. I think that Ethan Cardwell has come in and he's performed way above expectations for me. I like Ethan Cardwell as a player. I know a lot of people here think it's like for some reason, like they think Ethan Cardwell to me is Nick Cicek for Kevin. It's just become a thing. But I've really liked Ethan Cardwell. I wasn't super excited for him to come in. I didn't think his game was going to translate to pro quite as well as it has, especially in the AHL. Again, you want to look for bright spots on what's been a pretty bleak team. Ethan Cardwell's definitely high on that list. I've liked his game. I think he's an A-.
Go to Jules.
Jules.
All right. Hear me out, guys. I'm giving Ethan Cardwell a D. No, I'm kidding.
Whoa!
I'm kidding.
I'm giving Jules a D for that.
No, I'm joking. I will get murdered in the chat. But no, in all honesty, I wasn't super high on Cardwell when they drafted him. Just going to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And then at one point during, it might have been his overage season, I started to grow on him. I was like, that guy might be something. And it was funny because early on in the season, I mentioned Lacey. I was like, who is this guy in the future for the Sharks? He's starting to grow on me more and more. And I think he kind of just came in unexpectedly and took over. Like he's kind of one of the, again, I keep on saying there's very few bright spots, but now that I'm saying it, there's a lot of bright spots on this team. They just can't put it together.
Yeah.
But he's been amazing for the Cuda. He kind of scores goals at the right time. Like when the Cuda need a goal, you see McCarthy's going to Cardwell and Gushin, kind of those two pretty consistently, it feels like. He's just that motor, that forecheck. He's still learning. He is a young player, so he's still learning. But I absolutely love his game. I don't know what it's going to turn into in the NHL, but for a guy who was, I think, a 4th, 5th round pick to do what he's doing right now in the AHL is kind of ridiculous. So he's getting an A- for me.
All right. I'm giving Ethan Cardwell an A. Youthful exuberance. This kid bleeds youthful exuberance. Like he is just in there, the heart and soul of the team almost. Like he goes out there and just busts his butt. And he is the first one in on the forecheck when Radim Shimmick isn't racing up there first of all people.
Shimmick for it.
Ethan Cardwell just works his tail off for his goals, but he's got a nice shot too. Like we saw it last night. It was a play where he drew two defensemen together. They collided and tripped over each other, and that allowed him to get the space. Frisch slipped him a nice pass, and then Cardwell just, boom, one-timer in, goal. It's like Cardwell just knows what to do out there. And for a late-round pick who just think, he's a speedy guy, he can kill some penalties and, chip in a goal here or there. He's the type of guy who I know in the same conversation with Jules earlier, I told her he's the type of guy who just kind of works his way to the NHL and then might end up carving out an 8-year career. And you go, how about that Ethan Cardwell guy? Like he's just got that dog in him. I love it.
Who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Ryan Carpenter.
Okay. Yeah.
A guy who I think you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Ethan Cardwell's going to be a prolific scorer in the NHL, but I think he's a guy who's going to come in, who could come in and give you energy in your bottom six and play top line minutes in the AHL. Like, you know what I mean? He can kind of find that niche like a Ryan Carpenter's found where, he's a guy who can come in and he can play in your NHL bottom six. If you have the space for him, or he's going to be one of the big leaders of your AHL squad.
I feel like in the NHL, I think he's going to make it as a bottom six, and I feel like he's going to be like one of those elite penalty killing guys with his forechecking and probably getting a few shorthanded goals. Like, it just, his motor, I feel like, is going to get him into that bottom six of the NHL. Like, because I was not expecting him to put up this number in the AHL.
Yeah.
I think we killed Michael Molasses, by the way.
Really?
Sorry, Molasses. Last name on the list, and then we'll talk Tristan Robbins again. Larock here quick. Ozzy Weisblatt. I gave Ozzy Weisblatt a B. I love Ozzy Weisblatt. My love for Ozzy Weisblatt is something that is very known if you've hung out on this channel. I think that, again, this is a situation where I think injuries have been a little bit of a factor for him this year. But I love his game. Like, I've always loved his game. I know that a lot of people are like, yeah, but he's a first round pick, Ian, and I get that, right? But I don't know. I like his game. I think that there's a need for players like Ozzy Weisblatt who, again, I don't think he's going to be a guy who's going to come into your NHL team and be a prolific scorer, but is he going to be a guy who is going to be an absolute pain in the ass to play against and just frustrate your best players? Yep. Ozzy Weisblatt can do that. He's just such a pest. But again, but like similar players like him, there is an edge, and he still kind of wanders over that line a little more than I would like this season. But I have all the time in the world for that type of player. But I don't think he's exceeded my expectations either, which is why I just have him at a B. Kevin.
I give Ozzy Weisblatt a C+. I love Ozzy Weisblatt as well when he's healthy. It seems like he goes out there and just tries to wreck fools. And it's awesome. But as a smaller forward, he's shown that his body can't handle that right now.
Yeah.
And that's my concern about his longevity here. So I give him a C+ because he also can't seem to work his way up in this lineup. And I don't know what it is. I don't
think John McCarthy likes him.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think McCarthy likes that
I don't
guy.
know if it's McCarthy not trusting him to not take a dumb penalty because of his reckless play or what it is. But with that said, I almost feel like Ethan Cardwell has become what we want Ozzy Weisblatt to be. But he's got more physical. Weisblatt's got more physicality.
You're not wrong.
Go ahead, Jules.
Ozzy is such an intriguing player. And because in his draft year, I was intrigued by him, and I was kind of like, why did we take this guy? Like, because there's other guys on the board I was just higher on at the time.
Sure.
But he's such an intriguing player because I feel like there's so much offense there just built up because of all the physicality that he has. That guy has an engine I've never seen before in my life. He will go lay out a hit and then go to this other guy, smack him to the boards, give a cross check, take a dumb penalty, all in one shift, just to make Ian happy. But, like, okay, in all seriousness now, like, there's so much offense I feel like that is kind of boiled up, but he needs the right coach to unleash it, and I just don't think McCarthy's that. Overall this season, he's been good. I feel like he should be higher in the lineup, and he's just not getting the opportunity to show us Ozzy Weisblatt. Like, we're getting the hits and all, but it's like that's kind of it. The offense, I think, is coming because, like Lacey said, there was a line where that fourth line was giving any offense and all of the offense. And I've just derailed in my head. So I'm just going to say I'm giving Ozzy Weisblatt a C+.
I dig it. So let's talk Tristan Robbins and Gannon Larock quick. I'll start. Gannon Larock is a guy who I haven't watched a lot of him in junior because he was playing out in the Western Hockey League, so I don't really catch a lot of Western Hockey League stuff. So he's a player who I hear things about, but I haven't seen. And unfortunately, obviously, this is a guy who has had a lot of injury problems over the last little bit. So, like, obviously, I can't give this guy a grade. I've liked what I've seen so far for a guy who, hasn't played a ton this season. I've liked what I've seen. Tristan Robbins, on the other hand, is a guy who the Barracuda have sorely missed all year. I think when you look at I think earlier in the season when, you're like, oh, if they could just score on this power play, they could be in this game. And that's where they missed Tristan Robbins so much. Tristan Robbins came back. He looked like a guy who's missed half the year, trying to get up to game, mid-season game speed. He has gotten on the board more recently. So obviously that's promising. I think he's slowly getting back up to where you want him to be, but can you give him a grade? No, he just got back from being injured half the season. And while he's finally getting some goals, and that's good, it's promising from Tristan Robbins. I'm happy he's back. I'm happy he's starting to find the net now. And hopefully it sounds like Bordeleau's going to be out for a while, but it would have been nice to have, Bordeleau come back and have him and Robbins and, maybe try to win more than a couple of games win a couple of games in a row, actually.
Haven't done it this season, and I think we did it once last year.
Yeah. They did. They started the season like 4-0, and then everything went to hell.
Once after that.
Yeah. So I mean, like I've liked Tristan Robbins so far. I think I feel like if he had played all season, I think we would be raving about Tristan Robbins, much like we had the Cardwells, the Gushkins. I think he would definitely be in that conversation. I don't know. Yeah, I've liked his game so far. I think it's hard to get up to mid-season pace after being out as long as he was. Jules, any thoughts on Gannon Larocque and Tristan Robbins?
I'll keep this quick because I know we're like, I think 2 hours here.
Yeah, this is TTG. This is what we do.
I will say this. I was super excited for Gannon Larocque after his draft year. Like after his D1 plus year, he was I was so pumped for him. He even made a stint with the Barracuda and just made that guy just knows how to work his stick so well. I will say injuries have sent him back, and I'm kind of have died down a little on Larocque. But I really like Larocque. I think he just needs some time to adjust to the pro level because, mind you, like this is basically his first season. Like he got some games in Wichita, but not really. I think there is a NHL defenseman in there. It's just going to take some time, and with the injuries, he's just kind of got on a little derail. So don't forget about Larocque. He's kind of one of those like underrated guys that I think can come up and surprise a few people in a few years. And I'll just say stuff on Robbins. This team needed Robbins, so his injury really hurt this team. And I'm glad he's back, and we're seeing the production now slowly starting to come. But I think Robbins is going to be a very nice person to have throughout the stretch, and then hopefully later down in the year they can add Beasted and help the center core. And I will say Luca Cagnoni scored a goal today, and that has nothing to do with Cuda. I just wanted to update y'all. Cagnoni got a goal.
Kevin.
That's no, I don't have anything else to add really. I think Larocque has shown some really good mobility in the 4 games he had a couple of years ago, and then he played last night. Finally got a game in last night, and I thought he looked really swift on his feet. But I want to see more of him before I can honestly assess him. And then Tristan Robbins, I think he's finally working his way back. He had a goal last night, a goal tonight, and you mentioned Bordeleau goes down now that Robbins comes in. Yeah, you want to talk about, can we get Gushin someone to play with? It'd be nice to have both of them together to play with Gushin at some point.
Fabian Zetterlund.
Yeah. What was that? Oh, okay. There you go. I love Fabian. Fabian Zetterlund gets a solid A for me, by the way.
Yeah. And Larocque, I will say this about Larocque. I think with him, it's going to be the patience game.
Yeah.
And I think in a few years we'll start to see the payoff. And honestly, I would not be surprised with Bordeleau if he works out better at wing than at center. And
I agree 100%. Which I guess now that we've kind of gone through the roster and done that, we're
gonna go through every coach. We're not going through every coach.
We're just gonna talk coaching, just
the training
overall
staff.
Are we grading the coaches?
No, yeah.
Is it that hard?
It's
well, no. I was just saying, can I go below an F?
Oh. Woo.
You can do whatever you want.
So someone in the chat quite a while back.
Yeah, sorry.
I think his name is Tone Freck or Tone Freak, or maybe it's Tony Freak. I don't know. But he said, hey, everyone can't get good grades on a last place team. And we did say that at the start. Our grades are probably going to be higher than they maybe deserve because they are 30th out of 32. Comes down to this. Coaching staff, all of you, F. F, 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 F. Players are unprepared to play on night 1.
Yeah, I can't.
They're somewhat prepared to play on night 2. Why do we need 2 games to finally figure things out against teams?
Mm-hmm.
We had a nice little stretch where we could the Barracuda won the first game, but then would lose the second game. Why can't you carry that over from one game to the next? It's been 2 years of this. 2 completely different rosters, and yet the same exact result. Actually, a worse result so far this year than last year. So the coaching staff, something's got to change. I mentioned it at the start of the show a couple hours ago. If you're tuning in late, thank you for showing up. But 2 hours ago, I said, why are 4 players always chasing the puck at all times? There's so much open ice in either the defensive zone or in the offensive zone, allowing their defense to just go out the other side and take the puck out. Everything is just chase. Have a strategy. Mm-hmm. Have anything. Study film from the other teams and see what they're doing right, and then apply it here. Or get a new coaching staff. F for the coaching staff. They've let the players down. They've let these goalies down. Let the fans down.
Jules.
So, I apologize if I go off here.
No, go ahead.
I did not really blame McCarthy last year because I thought, hey, maybe it's just the roster they had, even though I kind of like the roster. I didn't really blame him because it was his first year, and it's like, you have to adjust to teaching or coaching at this level. That's fine, whatever. But seeing the same mistakes, seeing this team self-sabotage, seeing the penalties that are fucking constantly taking, this team is undisciplined. I think that's the best way to put it. The team is just genuinely undisciplined and kind of plays sometimes with no emotions. And that's like the most frustrating. Some nights it feels like they don't want to be out there. They don't give a shit. Which kind of, that's, as a fan, that's frustrating, especially because this is the future of the Sharks, and they literally advertise that the future of the Sharks starts here at SJ Barracuda, if you listen to their ads and stuff like that. So it's just frustrating to sometimes see them play with no emotions, and he's not done a good job coaching these guys, just not at all. This team is just not coached properly. I think he needs to go. I don't think he's necessarily sabotaging the development of prospects, but I think this team could be so much better if they just had the right coach, and McCarthy is just not doing it. Genuinely, I don't know if this team even watches film, because teams are just taking advantage and just completely demolish.
In the first minute of almost every game, we just allow the other team to just walk right in and shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if the Cuda don't make a coaching change at the end of this year, I'm just going to this is evident that the Sharks just don't care about the Cuda. So there's that.
Yeah. Look at John McCarthy again, right? It's when it comes to guys you want to root for, John McCarthy is on that list, right? Obviously what he went through, but I think this is a situation where, he's a guy who basically retired and was immediately made a coach on this
with
team.
no experience.
With no experience, right? He was under the Roy Sommer learning tree. Do with that as you will. I just think that I think for a player to make a jump like that, you want to do it not with the team that you just played for. And my concern with John McCarthy, I'm not local. I'm not at the games. I don't see him on the bench, so I don't see how he interacts with the players. I just wonder if he's still one of the guys. And that works as an assistant coach. It doesn't work as a head coach. And I just feel like look at this is one of the leagues where you cut your teeth as a coach. So I had no problem with him coming back this year because, again, you learn stuff, right? What did you learn from last year? Unfortunately, at this point in the season, we're already in January, and the answer to that question is so far nothing. Didn't learn a damn thing from last year because, again, it's the same team and everything else, and I just wonder if, again, and I don't know, so I'm just guessing, and I don't have any inside information that I can base this on, but I just wonder if John McCarthy's just one of the guys still. And, when you look at the culture around this team, like I said earlier in the show, this is a team that has trouble keeping veteran players around. Now, are the Barracuda the only team? No, lots of teams have trouble. A lot of guys move around as veteran players. But the fact that you had a guy who signed here for 2 years in Andrew Agozzino, who basically said, trade me right fucking now. I don't know, man. That to me sets off alarm bells. I can't give this. I mean, it's an F. It's obviously an F. This team has almost all the same problems with a big contingent of new players. I don't understand their system. I think their power play is predictable as hell. Like, you went to the Steve Spotspool power play because it's always the same shit that never changes, and it's like, I don't know, man. I don't understand this team.
I was astonished to see in the notes that the Barracuda are 15th in the AHL on the power play, considering that I feel like they give up as many chances on their own power play as they get on their power play.
Yeah.
The thing that frustrates me also is they're kind of a perimeter. They kind of just, let's pass the puck around and play whack-a-doodle with the fucking puck for 20 minutes, and the other team just knows where your pass is going to go, picks it off, and then goes the other way shorthanded.
It's not
and
even
the Sharks
just
have
that.
The same.
It's their entries, where it's always they always pass it back. 4 guys stop skating at the blue line, and then so like when you finally get in, now you have to start skating again. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's a mess.
And it's always so predictable because it's always going back down to Gushin.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like,
it's
literally every single
thing.
time. It's always like they'll drop it back and it's Gushin having to dangle through 8 guys because no one else is set.
I think, I think from a coaching perspective, though, I think something that I do want to shout out that I think should be positive is, I don't know who Ryan Miller's working with, but obviously it's working, because I think goaltending, again, if you look at the Sharks and the Barracuda, goaltending for a long time was the Sharks' Achilles heel. It hasn't really been that this year. Kaapo Kähkönen has had, a really good year. Now he is due money at the end of the season, and I'm always raised an eyebrow when that's the case, but Mackenzie Blackwood's been great. I think, again, like maybe the Barracuda goalies, there hasn't been many games where I've been like, wow, what a goaltending performance. But I think, given the shit in front of them, I think all the goalies have performed admirably, other than maybe Mäkiniemi. So, I mean, whereas, Kevin can tell you, I mean, there was some really rough years for goaltending on the Barracuda. And this is the first year I feel like goaltending hasn't really been an issue. I don't know if you want to speak to that quickly, Kevin, or not.
I thought last year was the same thing. I thought the goaltending was okay last year with,
fair enough.
With Dell and Mäkiniemi. But,
here's the thing, right? Dell's a veteran.
Yeah.
Yep. How much coaching are you doing with Aaron Dell?
Or how much is he coaching you?
Well, that's it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's where I have questions. So I think that I think I'm with everyone else, right? Like, if there's not a move at the end of the year for Barracuda coaching, I think that speaks to a much bigger problem. And you know what? We'll discuss that when it happens, because we've been on way too long.
Yeah.
I do want to thank everyone for coming and hanging out with us. We've had actually decent numbers for a Barracuda show, even though we've gone a little long. I don't think this will be the norm for these shows going forward.
Well,
but
there was a lot to.
Like I said, this is something we're gonna do. We're gonna try and keep to somewhat of a regular schedule. Obviously, schedules need to align and everything. But I hope you enjoyed this show. If you have anything you think we got wrong, hit us up in the comments below. Let us know if you are new here and you like what we do. We do this. We do lots of other things too. We come on live after every game, Sharks game. So if you want to hear our thoughts on that, be sure to hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. You know, all the fun YouTube stuff that I'm supposed to say. Do those things. It helps us a ton. Especially like hitting the like button if you haven't already. Leaving us a comment for engagement. I mean, all these things help us and they'll help other people discover what we do. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you ever want to catch this again, you can do it pretty much on any media platform. You can find us obviously on YouTube on the replay. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts from. If the podcasts are there, guaranteed we're there too. Just look for Teal Town USA. We appreciate you all being here, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good night.
Don't quit yet. Don't stop yet.
Oh, what am I doing?
We got to go around the league. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my God.
Wait, what? Okay.
But I do have something that needs to be said, especially because it did not get brought up on last night's After Dark. So we do need to wish our condolences to Frank Torres, who was one of the executives with the team. He was the VP of Business Operations. He took over for Eric Grunfast last summer, kind of when Eric had a sudden departure. Frank came over from the Coachella Valley Firebirds. I only spoke with him one time, and it was nothing more than a hello, nice to meet you. But it is very sad to hear that he has suddenly passed away at only age 38. Yeah. So we are, extending our thoughts to the Torres family. Because I know he did not have a wife or kids, so his parents and extended relatives, he is in our thoughts. So
yeah, definitely.
Best wishes to you, Frank. So
yeah, from everyone here at Teal Town USA for sure. So yeah, that's it, guys. I think we're gonna get the hell out of here. Again, appreciate you guys being here, and I will cut the audio. So if you do catch the replay, hopefully you won't hear the gong show that happened at the start of the show. Everyone have a good night. We'll see you on the next one.